Okay, so Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum and very good morning to everyone. Okay, so this week we proceed with types of conflict. Okay, so types of conflict exist within the organization and our daily life. Nurul Hafizah, kenapa dia tak boleh masuk Rasa link sama je kan?
Sama-sama. Okay.
Tak masuk. Boleh lah terproceed So this is the LO for today's session. Okay, at the end of session, students are able to determine the types of conflict, identify process of conflict according to different types of conflict. Okay, so every types of conflict they have different process. Okay, so I thought this one I already mentioned amongst all. Okay, amongst all, one of the business that can make a lot of money with conflict is television. Okay, anything that show within a television, within the radio or internet and so on, they make money out of conflict. Okay, so conflict ni in a business setting but conflict ni in a business setting, okay, in corporate setting, it is a very expensive, counterproductive and time consuming and labor intensive. So you just imagine when you involve in union, for example. Okay, the conflict between employee and the employer. So it takes time and then it will cost the organization. Okay, so that's why we will try as much as possible try to resolve the conflict within the organization. So early within the organization pula. Try to resolve the conflict as early as possible. Okay, so by the way, how many of you in your organization you have the union? Ramai tak? Ada tak yang ada union? Kalau government ni basically tak adalah, memang tak adalah. Kalau private sector, kalau bank ada kan? Feno saya rasa ada, bank ada. Ada?
Tak ada, Doktor.
Tak ada? Khairul Zarin tak ada Okay. Apalah, kalau tak ramai tak ada ni. Kalau bank basically dia ada. Feno, do you have the union within the banking employees? Unmute, Feno.
For executive dengan union clerical level ada union lah.
So because for the top management exactly dia becomes for the top management ni dia become the organizational representative. Kalau untuk employee yang bawah ni dia ada union. Okay, so there are in general there are three types of conflict. Okay, the main conflicts intrapersonal and interpersonal, intragroup and intergroup, and international conflict. So this one also we can use the organizational conflict lah between within or between organizational conflict ni. For international it is more macro level lah. Okay, intrapersonal and interpersonal ni is more on micro level. Okay, it is at the basic unit of individual, which is within individual and between individual. Okay, so intragroup ni within a group. Okay, intergroup between the group. Okay, so itu je, itu senang. Okay, so intrapersonal conflict ni occurs within a person. Okay, intrapsychic conflict. Okay, it might involve the individual psychological. So it gives a threat to a person's values. Okay, and then there are three types according to Shimerhan. Okay, 2002, there are three types of interpersonal conflict. The first one, approach conflict, in which it occurs when a person has to choose between two positive and equally attractive alternatives. For example, choosing between promotion in the organization or a job with another firm that offer you with higher salary, for example. Okay, so approach ni it happen because when the individual has to choose between two positive and equally attractive alternative. You have two options, but now you are confusing which one you want to choose because both are interesting to you. Okay. Next one is avoidance conflict, in which it occurs when a person has to choose between two negative and equally unattractive alternatives. Now, the first one, you have two positive alternatives, which is equally interesting to you. But the second one is you have two options, but both will give negative effect to you. Okay, but no matter what, you have to choose either one. Okay, so for example, choosing between accepting a job transfer to another town or have the employment terminated. For example. So both will give you intrapersonal conflict. Okay, so next one, approach avoidance conflict. This one mostly that will cause a higher conflict within an individual, in which it occurs when a person has to choose between something that has both positive and negative results. Okay, for example, you accept or not accepting a job with a higher pay, but with increased responsibilities that demand a lot of personal time. You want to accept, you either want to accept or reject an offer of promotion, okay, in which it will offer you high salary, but at the same time you have to sacrifice your time with your family. Kalau if you aware lah, within the organisation there are few clerical staff, for example. Basically they have the degree, okay, but after working for 15 years, for example, they refuse to be promoted because to them they value the time they spend with their family rather than working at office. But in terms of employer, for sure they are quite dissatisfied lah with the employee, because somehow after you work for 15 years, for example, so employer will demand more from the employee. Okay, so this one clear, so far so good, Okay, so next one is the theory that can explain the intrapersonal conflict. So the first one is psychodynamic theory. So this one is a theory that is based on psychological area. Okay, so this is the theory has been developed by Sigmund Freud. I know that some of you really well known with this name. Okay, he is very famous in psychology area. Okay, the main idea within the psychological theory ni, people experience conflict because of their intrapersonal states. Okay, they are within the inside values, okay, or emotions. Okay, and then there are two types of conflict. The first one is non-substantive conflict there are non-substantive conflict need to be released within the individual. There is a need to release tension unrelated to the other person in the situation. Okay, so for example, when you are in the position, you need to choose between two interesting offers, for example. Okay, so you are there, you are stressed to think which one is beneficial to you, more beneficial to you. Okay, so then you have created tension within yourself, and then you need to release this tension. Okay, that probably the tension is been released to the unrelated other person in the situation. Okay, the next one is misplaced or displaced conflict. So in which it act out with the wrong person or over the wrong issue. Okay, so you have the conflict, you have certain confusion at work, for example, then you have misplaced or displaced the conflict to either the wrong person over the wrong issue. Ada dua benda. Sama ada kita lepaskan konflik kita, kemarahan kita pada orang yang salah, ataupun sebenarnya kita lepaskan kemarahan kita itu pada sesuatu yang pada awalnya bukanlah satu konflik. Okay, for example, at work you are angry at your manager. But at home, when you are back, when you back home, for example, kita nampak ada satu kertas atas lantai. Tiba-tiba kita marah anak. For example, itu the example. Okay, so this is another example, Okay. So, there is a lady. Okay, so when I'm going to leave for an extended trip, I often wind up fighting with my husband before I go over some insignificant but overblown issues. Okay, this time I was really aware of the tendency and we had avoid any major blow up. So biasanya setiap kali this lady ni nak pergi outstation, biasanya memang dia akan gaduh dengan suami dia. Okay, but pada kali ni dia cuba untuk mengelak daripada berlaku pertengkaran dengan suami dia. Dia mengelak. Okay. Then it took a toll, though, in my response to a neighbor's irritating comments at the shared swimming pool. Normally, I simply would have left the situation, but I wound up telling him off in no uncertain terms. Maksudnya bila dalam perjalanan dia nak pergi kat kereta ni, dia jumpa neighbor dia, and then neighbor dia bagi irritating comment dekat dia. Okay, then kali ni dia balas. Okay, so dia balas. Dia bagi respon, dia balas balik dekat irritating comment yang diberikan oleh neighbor dia. Biasanya dia just ignore, tapi masa tu dia lepaskan. Okay. And then I was really embarrassed that I blew up. Not only was the issue simply not worth the anger I felt, but I didn't even know this person before, and now I feel like I have to avoid him. So this is the example of misplaced conflict. Okay, in which the conflict yang asalnya dengan suami dia. Okay, tapi dia pergi luahkan pada individu neighbor yang dia tak pernah jumpa pun sebelum ni. Dia tak kenal pun. Okay. Okay, so according to the psychodynamic theory, mind is a body. Mind, okay, equals to a body of psychic energy that is channeled into various activities. Dia kata dalam badan kita ni, dia ada psychic energy. Dia macam contoh exactly macam ni. Okay, dia ada tenaga psychic dalam badan kita. Okay, dan tenaga ini kita perlu salurkan kepada aktiviti-aktiviti tertentu. Bergerak, okay, pergerakan, suara, penglihatan, okay. So then, these activities ni either dia akan jadi kita salurkan dekat tempat yang betul ataupun tempat yang salah. Tempat yang betul contohnya kita mengambil makanan guna tangan, contoh. Tempat yang salah contohnya kita memukul orang lain. Itu maksud dia, okay. People tend to misplace or displace conflict when they feel that dealing with other person directly is not possible or only make things worse. So, mengikut teori ni, dia kata manusia ni dia akan salurkan psychic energy ni ke tempat yang salah sekiranya kita tidak dapat meluahkan konflik tersebut, kita tidak dapat meluahkan ketidakpuasan hati kita terhadap orang yang sepatutnya. For example, in the place where you have certain dissatisfaction with your superior. Maksudnya dia adalah orang yang lagi ada kuasa lebih daripada kita. So kita tak boleh nak express our anger dekat dia. So then we tend to express our anger to someone with, which is most inferior than us. Okay. Okay, so the tension created by trying not to fight before leaving on a trip gets channeled onto a safe person or stranger. This one, when we relate to the previous case, with related to that lady, sebab dia tak dapat nak luahkan dekat suami dia, sebab dia nak mengelakkan konflik dengan suami dia, tapi dia luahkan dekat a safe person which is a stranger. The stranger ni dia tak berapa kisah sangat sebab dia tak ada regular interaction dengan stranger ni. Okay. Okay, so there are three main aspects in human mind which can affect the psychic or frustration energy. Okay, so ada 3 benda dalam kepala kita yang akan boleh memberi kesan kepada psychic energy ni ataupun frustration dalam diri kita. So the first one is ego, super ego. 3 benda. It ni unconscious aspect. Okay, then it is inherent, present at birth, fixed in the constitution. It contains libido, which is a source of instinctual energy. So it ni adalah yang kita dapat masa kita lahir lagi. Kita inherit dalam diri kita. Okay, and then dalam it ni dia ada libido. Libido ni source of instinctual energy. Okay. It operates on the pleasure principle in which tensions reduction by translate bodily need into psychological wish. So, 8 ni dia akan berfungsi melalui pleasure principle daripada kita akan cuba reducekan tension ni by translate bodily need. Kita akan translatekan keperluan, contohnya kita rasa kita nak tampar orang tapi kita translate ni into psychological wish. Kita rasa kita nak tampar tapi kita just come out dengan dalam fikiran sahaja. Okay, psychological wish. Okay, and then it seeks pleasure to satisfy needs without regards for the cost of doing so. Okay. Next one, the second one is ego. So ego is the mediating between, saya proceed dengan super ego dulu. Okay, so this is the lowest yang kita inherit, yang ni yang kita mungkin possess lepas kita ada experience and so on. Okay, so super ego ni the opposing of 8. Dia bertentangan dengan 8. Okay, it contains ego ideal and conscience. Okay, kalau yang 8 ni kita unconscious, sesuatu yang kita tak sedar tapi ada dalam diri kita. Okay, super ego ni contains ego ideal and conscience. Maksudnya tindakan ni kita boleh kawal. Okay. Ego ideal refers to an idea of what a person would like to be. Okay, and then conscience contains morals and other judgments concerning correct or incorrect behavior. Okay, and then for example, parent tries to punish a child for immoral behavior and give reward for moral behavior through feelings like guilt or proud. Kalau kita rasa proud dekat anak kita, dan kita bagi hadiah. Kalau kita rasa anak-anak buat salah, dan kita bagi punishment. Marah saya lah tu. Okay, so 8 ni something yang, again 8 something yang kita inherit. Super ego is something that is yang kita nak jadi. Okay, our wish. Kita nak jadi macam ni. Okay. Okay, then ego pula, it's mediating between 8 and super ego. Ego ni merupakan pengantara. Kalau 8 ni terlalu melampaui batas, dia akan tarik. Kalau super ego akan melampaui batas, dia akan tarik. Okay, so ego ni dia akan balancekan balik between 8 and super ego. Okay, and then ego ni it governed by reality principle. Jahat ni super ego ni dia mau kepada fantasi, kita nak jadi macam mana. Okay. We will postpone the discharge of energy until the actual object that will satisfy the needs has been discovered or produced. In conflict, ego tries to reconcile the desires of the 8. Example, I want it all and I want it now. Manusia ni biasa kalau dia nak sekarang. Okay, with the constraint of super ego. Nice people don't throw temper tantrum. So, then must constrain aggressive impulse and control the level of anxiety conflict creates. Okay, so 8 ni dia akan control between the extreme of 8 and the extreme of super ego. Okay, faham macam mana dalam badan psikologi kita berfungsi. Okay, so kalau kita illustratekan, inilah dia ego, super ego dan 8. Okay, 8 ni benda yang underneath, yang kita tak nampak. Kalau let's say kita imagine this is the iceberg, yang kat bawah tu kita tak nampak. So itulah kat bawah tu sebenarnya ada diri kita. Okay, dan super ego ni benda yang biasanya kita akan post dekat Facebook. Yang kita selalu gambarkan, kita ni macam ni, macam ni, macam ni. For example. Okay, ni biasanya super ego ni kita nak orang lihat kita macam ni, perfect. Okay, but ego ni pula I am connected in my real life friends. So maksudnya kalau ego ni pula kita just, kalau kita be friend, kita friend dengan kawan-kawan kita saja yang tahu kita kat alam maya dan kat luar. Okay, faham Yes.
Saya nak tanya, yang ID tu apa maksud panjang dia? Identity
Tak, memang 8 je nama dia. Bukan ID, bukan identification number bukan. 8 je, memang nama dia 8.
Okay,
First time tengok
first time.
Bukan ID. Kalau dalam statistik tu ID, ni 8 je.
Okay, doktor.
Okay, so ego ni pula, ni kita fokus dekat ego, pembentukan ego. Ego deals with aggressive impulse by suppressing them or redirecting them through a process of displacement. So, aggressive impulse dan sama ada daripada 8 dengan super ego tadi. Okay, sebab tadi saya kata ego ni dia akan jadi mediator between 8 and super ego. Okay, so bila dua-dua ni memainkan peranan, id dan super ego memainkan peranan, dia akan menghasilkan aggressive impulse dalam badan kita. So sekarang kita akan tengok mekanisme macam mana ego ni berfungsi. So ini dia punya proses. Nanti saya rasa saya kena share slide baru ni sebab saya ada edit sikit. Okay, so ego ni dia akan berinteraksi dengan aggressive impulse ni. So tadi id dengan super ego ni dia akan bertindak balas sekiranya sesuatu situasi itu merupakan sesuatu yang valuable or powerful to a person. Maksudnya kita cuba mempertahankan sesuatu yang bermakna dekat kita. So dia akan menghasilkan aggressive impulse untuk kita pertahankan. Okay. And then displacement process ni berlaku apabila aggressive impulse ni kita redirected kan sama ada dekat vulnerable than the actual source of frustration ataupun socially acceptable than the actual source. Sama kita aggressive impulse ni kita ada there are two tendency yang kita akan salurkan. Sama ada kita akan memberi tindak balas yang lebih teruk daripada sumber konflik yang asal. Tindak balas kita tu, ataupun kita memberi tindak balas yang mana tindak balas tersebut merupakan sesuatu yang boleh diterima oleh orang lain, socially acceptable target dan the actual source of frustration. Okay, ni sama ada tindak balas kita itu beyond daripada norma masyarakat, for example norma average people, ataupun kita salurkan dia dekat kita bertindak balas supaya orang lain pun boleh terima tindak balas kita tu. Okay. So dia kata displacement process ni is more likely to happen when the true source of frustration is powerful or particularly valuable to individual. So dia kata, Freud ni kata displacement ni dalam diri kita, dia mungkin boleh berlaku dalam 1-2 saat je Dia hanya boleh berlaku bila kita cuba mempertahankan sesuatu yang kita rasa penting dalam hidup kita. Okay. So then hasilnya, kalau let's say hasil daripada displacement process ni, dia boleh jadi scapegoating in a group. Scapegoating maksudnya kita jadi kambing hitam. Maksudnya, for example, if you want to remain a relationship within an organisation and then there are issues, for example, related to work, related to your work, then orang lain tak nak mengaku. Then, in order for you to remain within that social group, then you become the scapegoat. So, ini dia punya hasil, salah satu hasil. Ataupun sebab kita tak nak meluahkan apa yang kita nak cakap, then as a result, we keep it by ourselves. At the end of the day, it will result in anxiety. Ini salah satu. Okay, so proses ni clear Clear?
Okay.
Okay, so this is the example example ni saya share tak tadi? Tak share. Example of development of virtual personality yang boleh kita relatekan dengan id, ego and super ego. So macam mana pembentukan virtual personality ni dia relatekan dengan bloggers, for example, bloggers yang dia sangat dia sangat bila dekat blog, bila dia menulis dia akan jadi outspoken. He or she will express their feelings, their angriness, their sadness, but in reality, okay, he or she is a very introvert. Tapi kalau dekat alam maya tu dia sangat extrovert. And another example is keyboard warrior. Okay, so kalau artikel ni saya rasa sangat interesting. If you have some time, then you can read the article. Okay, so in which it highlight that the conflicts between real self and virtual self are characteristic of bloggers. So bloggers ni sebenarnya kat luar dia tak berani sangat. Tapi sebenarnya dia dalaman dia ada konflik between the real self ni maksudnya yang sepatutnya kita nampak. Okay, within and between the virtual self. Bila dia rasa bila dia di alam maya ni dia rasa dia secure. Okay? So most of the tension is the result of contradiction of ideas about their personal, social and communicative competence and the opposition of coping strategies or acceptance of struggle or avoidance of struggle. So maksudnya dia ada difficulty sebenarnya. Dia kalau in actual life they are not confident with their personal, social and communication competency ni. Okay? Ini salah satu yang kita boleh jadikan contoh untuk menggambarkan isu yang id ego and super ego. Okay, so next one is interpersonal conflict. So interpersonal conflict ni also refer to the direct conflict in which conflict happen to at least between two individuals. So for example, kalau dalam organisation ni between two individual employees, sama ada dekat hierarchical yang sama ataupun different hierarchy, horizontal or parallel. Okay, it depends on interpersonal communication. So this one mostly it depends on how we communicate with other party. So it can also be influenced by intrapersonal conflict. Why? Because of individual characteristic will influence the way they behave in certain conflict situation. Okay. So example of conflict related to interpersonal conflict, for example, work-family conflict and family-to-work conflict. Ini biasa yang berlaku tapi kita tak realise dia yang berlaku. Okay, work-family conflict ni maksudnya konflik di tempat kerja kita bawa balik ke rumah, ataupun family-to-work conflict ni konflik dengan isteri atau dengan anak-anak kita bawa ke tempat kerja. But in Malaysia, okay, family-to-work conflict ni rarely happen. The most happen in Malaysia is work-family conflict, in which there are very huge tendency of employees to bring the problem or dissatisfaction that they face at work to home. Okay, so maksudnya for example dia tak puas hati dengan bos dia on certain issue or on his colleague, with his colleague for example. So this frustration, because he or she cannot express it directly to their top management, they will bring home. Okay, as a result, pergaduhan violence with the spouse ataupun divorce. Okay, for example ni.
Keganasan rumah tangga.
Ya, betul. Biasanya salah satunya keganasan rumah tangga yang akhirnya, okay. Okay.
Kenapa
Okay, so
dekat family work conflict tak happen dekat sini?
dia jarang berlaku. Dia ada tapi bukan tak berlaku tau. Dia jarang berlaku. Sebab based on ni saya buat research sendiri pun tau. The flow dia yang mostly they cite is this one.
Work family.
Work to family. Okay, kalau family to work ni, okay. For example, for single parents okay. Biasanya kalau let's say dia marah dekat anak dia, for example, single mother, for example, dia marah dekat anak dia jarang bawa ke tempat kerja. Dia jarang. Okay, but tapi if let's say you are under the inferior position, there will be tendency for you to bring the conflict at workplace. Okay, ni saya tak ada apa-apa ni cuma saya bagi situation. For example, within a marriage institution, for example. So husband we consider to be more superior than wife, example. So, wife inferior lah, superior the husband. So husband kalau let's say dia ada konflik dengan wife dia, biasanya kat tempat kerja dia okay sahaja, biasa. Okay, they will possess because at work, because in Malaysia ni our society we believe that the male should be the breadwinner. So lelaki ni biasanya untuk anything related to home ni, dia tak, house chores ni dia tak kisah sangat. Okay, but at the workplace they want to perform. But since since what we have discussed earlier, after the World War II, after the Industrial Revolution, women started to go to work. So in which there are the transformation between the roles of women from at home to the workplace. So dia akan ada konflik. Kalau untuk perempuan yang there are multiple roles ni, they probably ada banyak konflik. Okay, saya tak kata lelaki tak ada konflik ada. Okay, so faham ni Dia
So
berlaku.
your meaning that ini is interpersonal conflict lah, tapi doesn't macam kita talking about conflict macam effect dia punya work or something.
Betul.
Tak involve dalam ni.
Ada, dia berlaku tapi jarang berlaku this one. Dia mostly work to family conflict ni paling banyak. Okay, sebab macam ni. Sebab kita ni still dalam norma lama in which yang bekerja dekat organizations are still men. Okay. So biasanya lelaki dia dekat workplace dia nak perform. Okay, because they believe that they are the sole breadwinner to the family. Kita norma kita macam tu lagi, tapi we are towards changing. So this one nanti kena ada future research lah. Kalau kena ada continuous research untuk kita figure out the new finding. Kan? Sebab sebelum ni lelaki dia the only sole breadwinner. So lelaki ni kita tahu dia adalah merupakan, bila kita kata dia adalah the breadwinner in our family, so dia pegang responsibility. So dia tahu bila dia tempat kerja, dia responsible untuk bring the money to the home. So dia jarang biasanya untuk bawa konflik ni daripada rumah ke tempat kerja. Okay, tapi sebabkan semakin ramainya wanita di tempat kerja, so tendensi ni mungkin boleh berubah. Okay?
Doktor,
ya.
Nak tanya yang kata yang work family conflict ni kan, macam kata yang ni paling banyak daripada family work conflict.
Betul.
So kalau macam work family conflict ni kebanyakan suami ke atau isteri yang biasanya yang bawa masalah daripada tempat kerja ke rumah?
Okay, so basically it can be both. Okay, semua. Okay, so women ni bila kita tengok the karakteristik and then dia punya norm, kita punya norma. Sebab macam bila saya kata, kalau kita relatekan balik the last week, topik punya kelas, okay, I have presented on the revolution. Daripada mana, daripada asal usul, startednya, sebab sebelum ni kita percaya yang lelaki sahaja yang bekerja tau. So dia related to that one. Sebab sampai sekarang kita ada lagi that belief in which women should be at home. Okay, women should be at home and male should be at work. Kita ada norma tu dan kita jangan terkejut kalau dekat bahagian kampung pun kita area urban area ni pun kita rural area kita still akan ada we have to deal with this situation. Okay, jangan terkejut. So you have to know that previous study mostly being conducted among male.
Oh, okay.
Okay, previous study sebab male. Research sebelum ni sebab kita kata bila lelaki dekat bekerja, so
doktor.
Alamak, Nadia tergelak ke apa? So bila Nadia batuk ke Nadia tergelak? Okay, so bila kita kata sebelum ni lelaki banyak mendominasi ruang pekerjaan, so dia bukan sahaja di ruang pekerjaan tau, even dalam dunia research pun lelaki dijadikan subjek untuk dalam research. Okay, lelaki juga menjadi subjek ataupun responden dalam kajian. Dia bila start women datang masuk office sahaja, masuk bekerja sahaja, so dunia pekerjaan pun berubah. Saya bagi contoh okay, dalam pasukan beruniform contohnya. Ramai lelaki ke ramai perempuan?
Lelaki.
Another thing is
Lelaki doktor.
banking. Banking perempuan Okay, service perempuan manufacturing.
Okay.
Perempuan. Sebab operator banyak.
Okay, then doctors.
Perempuan.
Sebelum tu.
Laki.
So saya tanya ni balik. Ni dia related tau. Ni STEM ni. Pernah dengar STEM? Kita tak pernah dengar? Science, Technology, Engineering and Maths. So bidang ni didominasi oleh lelaki. Okay, bidang ni memang didominasi oleh lelaki daripada dulu sampai sekarang. Okay, and then kalau kita relate pun, okay, pernah dengar tak yang polisi kerajaan untuk jadikan 30% representative in top management? Pernah dengar? Inilah punca-punca dia. Untuk government sector, yes, we successfully implement it. Memang kita dapatlah dalam last year kita dapat dalam around 40 something lah, quite balance lah kalau untuk government sector. Tapi untuk private sector, it is very difficult lagi untuk make sure that kita ada nisbah yang sama. Ini sebabnya macam saya kata that's why it is prone to this one. Okay. Saya tak kata dia tak berlaku, dia berlaku tapi jarang. So dia berkait dengan semua benda ni. Okay, so clear Clear.
Doktor nak tanya yang apa diadik konflik ni memang dia punya term diadik konflik
Dyadic conflict tak, dia ada name of interpersonal conflict. Dyadic ni dua. Maksudnya konflik dua yang melibatkan dua orang, dyadic.
Oh.
Nama lain kepada interpersonal. Interpersonal kan at least dua orang. So dyadic ni pun maksudnya dia melibatkan dua arrow lah.
Okay.
Okay. Lagi nak tanya? Okay, so next one. Okay, so as a result of konflik tadi juga, it will influence your work-life balance. For example, contoh bila you all bekerja, sepatutnya you all kena balik pukul 5. Tapi tiba-tiba bos bagi jauh cakap you all kena stay sampai pukul 9. Sedangkan pukul 6 tu you all dah janji dengan isteri. Ni biasa berlaku. Okay, it's not happen to wife je, husband saja, tapi wife pun. Kita dah janji dengan family untuk keluar makan pukul 6 contohnya. Tapi dalam pukul 5 suku bila you all nak kemar-kemar nak balik, bos bagi tahu you have to stay until 9 PM. If let's say it happen just once in a while, it's okay. But if let's say it happen for a long term, it will cause your work-life balance. It will disturb. It will interfere with your work-to-life balance. Okay. So the horizontal conflict in which it happened between two people at approximately equivalent level on the organization chart. Okay, for example, knowledge sharing, intense of competition and within employment scheme. So this one example types of interpersonal conflict in which the horizontal conflict ni it happen between two individual at horizontal or at similar level. Okay, between your clique lah. Click yang betul-betul click yang sama level. Kalau you at Z, then you at Z. Okay. And then vertical conflict happen between two people who are at different levels on the organizational chart, like a supervisor and subordinate, or even between people who are not in the direct reporting line. For example, between superior subordinate. Okay, this one direct reporting line ni probably the conflict between you at department human resource department with the manager at logistic department. Okay, as long as dia ada beza level tu. Okay, so outward conflict happen between a person or persons in a company and people or person who are vendors or customers. So ni outward conflict. Okay, ni clear jenis konflik ni? Senang je ni. Okay, so the interpersonal conflict ni can be explained by attribution theory. Teori sifat. Okay, so in a conflict situation, according to theory, teori ni pun based on Freud juga. Ada pengaruh daripada Sigmund Freud juga. Dia based on the psychological theory. Okay, so according to the theory, in a conflict situation, one makes conclusion about the other person's behavior and that those conclusions lead to theories to explain the conflict. So dia kata kalau ikut teori attribution ni, bila kita berinteraksi dengan seseorang, sebelum kita berinteraksi tu, kita dah buat conclusion ni dekat orang tu. Kita belum cakap lagi. Tapi kita dah ada dalam kepala kita the conclusion that we made on that person. Okay, another example is, have you ever faced a situation where, okay, you just first time meeting one person. First time kita baru tengok, tak pernah cakap lagi, tak pernah jumpa pun sebelum ni. But in your mind, you keep saying that, oh damn, I don't like this guy. Sorry lah, terkasar pula. Kita baru tengok je, tapi kita cakap, tak boleh lah dengan orang ni. Okay, so dalam kepala kita dah make the assumption on that person. Okay, so the main idea of the theory is people act as they do in conflict situation because of the conclusion they draw about the other. So bila kita kata kita tak suka dekat orang tu, so bila kita bertingkah laku, kita akan menunjukkan tingkah laku yang kita tak suka dekat dia.
Adakah benda tu normal tu?
It's not normal. Untuk kita sekarang bila kita selalu buat itu normal. Tapi kalau ikut teori ni, itu yang dia explain kenapa kita buat macam tu. Sebab kadang-kadang kita tak ada reason pun kenapa kita layan orang tu macam tu.
Ataupun benda tu normal, setiap orang akan ada.
Semua orang akan ada. Dia probably akan ada disebabkan tadi macam saya kata 8 tadi. 8, ingat balik teori psychodynamic tadi. 8 tu maksudnya memang ada. But dalam 8 tu kan dia ada libido. Libido tu adalah insting. Mungkin insting ni kita boleh, mungkin kita dapat daripada lahir ataupun dia mungkin kita boleh develop melalui pengalaman. Tapi adakah itu betul? Is it correct? Sebab kita belum pernah ada experience lagi bekerja dengan dia. Tapi kita dah ada dalam kepala kita. Apa? So try reflect masing-masing Try reflect masing-masing. Okay? So the conclusion about
Dia macam discrimination.
Dia boleh jadi discrimination, Fino. Yes. Okay. So conclusions about the other are based on attributions about that person or on inference about the meanings, causes or outcomes of conflict event. So maksudnya samalah daripada atas tadi, bila kita dah ada assumption dekat orang tu, so bila kita bila cara kita bercakap, cara kita bertingkah laku, dia akan align dengan apa yang kita fikirkan pasal orang tu. Okay. So this situation ni, okay, can either be influenced by internal attributes, okay, or external attributes. Okay, so internal attributes ni dia akan bergantung kepada attribute kita sebagai interpreter, sebagai kita orang yang tengok. Okay, bila kita tengok orang tu sebelum kita nak berinteraksi, so dia depend pada kita. Okay, so bila saya kata pada kita ni, dia relate baliklah dekat teori tadi tu, Psychodynamic Theory tu.
Okay doktor, sepatutnya macam kita tak sepatutnya macam buat macam assumption kan, persepsi kan.
Yes,
So kita just go through the flow lah. Maksudnya kita bekerjasama dulu di situ baru kita boleh nampak dia punya apa dia punya karakter dia macam mana, sebab kadang kita lebih pada orang kata apa? Kita lebih pada physical appearance kan. So bila kita tengok dia ni muka masam, kita educated assumption, dia ni bos kita ni bos baru kita ni something wrong ni, padahal bila kita dah lama dah bekerja baru kita dia ni okey sebenarnya, tapi kadang bila mindset kita first time tu dah negatif, biasanya agak sukar sebenarnya untuk kita tune yang dah akan ambil masa lah. Betul.
Yes. Apa tu, pandai Syafian. Okay, so inilah dia punya purpose dia. So sebenarnya benda tu kita boleh control sebab dia bukan normal sebenarnya. Okay. Okay, so dia bergantung pada diri kita satu, dan second one is external attribute. External attributes ni maksudnya keadaan tu. Keadaan satu diri kita, satu lagi keadaan kalau kita tengok dia tu sebenarnya dalam keadaan apa. Okay, the situation or the circumstances of the person. Okay, so ni clear ada soalan nak tanya? Clear Ni pentingnya faham teori. Ada juga teori penting. Okay, so conflict arises because an assumption that someone has insufficient information or because of faulty conclusions drawn about other person's behavior. So maksudnya bila kita tengok orang tu, kita dah come out dengan kita punya own assumption. So sebenarnya maklumat kita bila kita nak proses tu pun tak lengkap. Kita tak tahu sepenuhnya pun lagi dekat berkenaan dengan orang tu. Okay, maklumat tu insufficient, belum lengkap. Puzzle kita tu masih dalam raw lagi. Puzzle dalam kepala kita. Okay, dia belum sempurna lagi puzzle tu. Okay. Okay, so this is example. Okay, so attribution affect the way people define conflicts, interpret the other's behavior and choose strategies to achieve their goal. So samalah ni dia macam selari. So bila kita come out dengan assumption, so dia akan mempengaruhi macam mana kita interpret the information, and lastly dia akan mempengaruhi macam mana kita nak deal ataupun kita nak deal dengan the person. Choose strategies to achieve ni. Sama ada nak avoidance ke, nak accommodate ke, nanti kita akan belajar the strategi ni. Okay, and then the process of making attribution about the other may discourage the selection of integrative or collaborative conflict strategies because the process of attribution may shift the blame from oneself to the other. Okay, so proses attribution ni dia akan menyebabkan sama ada individu ni dia nak integrate, ataupun dia nak collaborative, ataupun dia nak avoid. Okay. And then people tend to perceive the other as aggressive and respond with anger and retribution when the action of the other person is seen as a constraint to one's own alternative or outcomes. So bila kita reflect balik, kita tengok kenapa kita tak suka orang tu. Kan, ingat balik. Okay, adakah dia ni tindak balas yang ditunjukkan ni sebenarnya menghalang kita untuk mencapai sesuatu matlamat yang kita nak. For example, kalau you aim to be promoted for that particular year and then you see there is another competitor. Okay. Okay. Next one. The action taken by the other appears to have done so in order to intentionally harm A. Dia ada juga probability yang memang orang tu memang betul-betul nak harm kita. Yang ni bolehlah positif lah kalau kita memberi reaksi dingin ke. Okay, but this one lah yang akan memberi masalah ni. Okay. Okay, the action taken by the other is seen as abnormal or illegitimate. Abnormal and illegitimate. Ni. Saja nak tanya, abnormal and illegitimate, how we define it? Anybody? How we define, kalau illegitimate ni is quite factual lah because it is based on law. Abnormal. How we define a certain behavior is abnormal. For example, saya bagi contoh kalau orang Kelantan, ada orang Kelantan kat sini kan? Orang Kelantan, bila diminum air, dia akan cicah dengan biskut. Biskut tu cicah dengan air. In certain culture, okay, that behavior considered to be abnormal. Hanya untuk culture tu sahaja, budaya orang Kelantan sahaja benda itu adalah normal. Okay, so abnormality ni, okay, it is socially constructed. Benda yang terbentuk secara sosial. Bila kita kata dia terbentuk secara sosial, maksudnya tidak semua orang mempunyai habit dan behavior yang sama dengan kita. Culture yang sama, okay, habit yang sama, myth yang sama. Okay, kalau legal ni somehow dia dah memang constitutionally constructed. Memang dia dah become standardized to everybody. But this one ni should be very careful because it depend on social construction. Okay, faham Ani, faham Okay, ni lajulah. Yalah ni, contoh ni. Okay, so lajulah sikit ni contoh je. Okay, perception of conflict arises when a person feels some frustration, thinks about the source of the frustration and then acts in response to it. Okay, so selari dah dengan tadi. Okay, so this is the paper, the article that I want you to read. Bukan lah, kalau you all ada masa, you all baca artikel tu. It is a quite interesting discussion related to Islam and inheritance in Malaya. Paper tu dah lama, but it's quite interesting. Okay, macam mana penguatkuasaan property inheritance ni di Malaysia. Adakah dia betul-betul ikut Islam or it is based on Malay culture. So dia ada isu kat sini, the culture conflict or Islamic revolution. Okay, kalau you all ada masa, you all baca. Okay, so another case, this is the divorce, the case sebenarnya case penceraian. Okay, matrimonial proceeding, case ni semua ada isu dia. Okay, so dia berkahwin, tapi sekarang case dia panjang rasanya, lepas tu dia nak bercerai. Tapi sebelum dia bercerai tu kita, the court case ni nak tahu dulu sama ada case dia ni berkahwin secara sah ataupun tak. Sebab dia berkahwin dekat Siam. So the case between Muhammad Azam Sharif and Cik Nolina Long. Okay, in which where parties solemnized their marriage in Songkhla, Thailand and applied for registration in Sharia Court Penang. Okay, the issue before the Sharia Court was whether the solemnization was valid. Okay, so the Sharia High Court then held that by referring to the evidence produced by the respondent and the two witnesses together with a marriage certificate certified by the Islamic Office in Songkhla, Thailand. So the lead judge had declared that the marriage was solemnized in accordance with Hukum Syara, therefore it was valid and deemed to be registered. Okay. Secara kalau let's say we do not have the legal, there's no legal that govern this action. Sah ke tak kahwin kat Siam? Saya tak suruh kahwin kat Siam Saya bagi tahu dulu. Nak relatekan dengan amboi dia punya gelak tu.
Okay, sorry doktor.
So then baru nampak konflik ni luas.
Supaya case macam
Sah doktor.
Sah. Dia
dia
sah.
kalau macam mana?
Eh,
Persepsi tu kata tak boleh kan, tapi sah tu.
sebab kita ada legal constitution in which the marriage should be registered in Malaysia. Betul tak Syafian? Tapi ni maksudnya konflik
tapi kebanyakan diorang ni dia biasa yang isu dia ni biasa yang ke mana ni lah, macam kahwin dua yang mana orang kata apa
tu
bukan
stop lah, janganlah sebut kahwin dua. Jangan sebut sensitif tu.
tak biasa yang kes yang saya bawa lah, kes yang biasa orang tak register ni, kadang satu dia berkahwin dua, lepas tu satu lagi macam perempuan simpanan, diorang dia nak masih illegal kan, tu yang diorang pergi ke tu. Tapi macam dari segi kita orang ni, bila siasatan kita orang lah, kita orang biasa kalau dia ada anak, kita orang akan anggap dia sebagai berkahwin. Tapi kalau dia tak ada anak, kita akan tengok macam dia dah duduk berapa lama. Kita akan tengok tentu lah. Lepas tu kalau macam tak konkret, sebab kadang diorang tak ada gambar, diorang just cakap je. So kita akan anggap dia sebagai macam kes rumah tangga dengan kes biasa, dia lain tau. Sebab dia ada asas tersendiri. So
tapi saya tanya Syafian, apa rupa nikah? Itu sebenarnya konflik maksudnya. Bukan nak kata kita legal, kita tak, bukan, I'm not arguing, but I just want to give you the example. Okay, the case that is considered to be illegitimate conflict yang related to illegal, maksudnya based on Malaysian constitution, it is illegal lah, right? Dia kalau let's say you nikah tak ada anak, supposed to be no problem lah, sebab anak tak nak bersekolah, tak ada anak, anak tak pergi sekolah. Okay, tapi dia akan ada isu bila berlakunya penceraian. Maksudnya nak menuntut harta persyarian. So kita kena proofkan dulu perkahwinan itu sah. Okay, so ini dia punya ni lah. Nanti you all boleh lah refer case dia ni boleh tengok case dia. So bila ada orang-orang yang pakar ni, best lah juga discuss benda ni. Tapi jangan buat Okay. So in another case is in the marriage of Y and K Raja Bahrain. Sini kita punya politician ni, you all boleh cari ni. Okay, in which he married with an Australian. Saya lupa apa nama ex-wife dia. So the case ni involve the Australian and Malaysian citizenship. So dia berkahwin dengan orang Australia. So in this case, the important principle deduced by the court is in custody issue is welfare of the child. Maksudnya dia berebut hak penjagaan anak ni. As being paramount, which might be varying from one authority than others. Such contradictory is largely due to outcome of each authority's judgment of what is important to constitute welfare of the child. Sebab decision by court ni pun somehow dia dah adalah subjektif. Dia nak tengok welfare of the child ni. Apa yang kita rasa dia rasa boleh menjamin welfare anak-anak ni. Untuk dia decidekan hak penjagaan anak-anak sama ada husband ataupun wife. So welfare of the child ni pun sangat subjektif. Okay, so as regard to the custody order.
Kadang-kadang dia.
Ya Syafian.
Okay. Macam biasalah, macam welfare.
Syafian tak dengar.
Kejap ada macam kat court. Kalau budak tu macam tak salah saya 8 tahun ke atas kot, macam kita macam biasa kan kat mahkamah lah, tak salah saya. Kalau contoh dia boleh berfikir, biasanya court akan bagi dia buat keputusan sama ada dia nak ke mana, nak pergi ke ayah ke atau ke ibu. Tapi biasanya kita akan biasanya dia akan panggil lawyer lah untuk untuk proof dia punya siapa yang lebih layak. Dia akan tengok lah dari segi dia punya gaji pendapatan, dari segi dia punya dari segi kemampuan, dari segi rumah. Itu pun akan jadi dia punya antara pilihan lah. mahkamah nak buat keputusan. Tapi biasanya kalau budak tu dia boleh dia boleh berfikir, dia boleh memberi pandangan, biasanya mahkamah akan minta dia decide lah satu yang dia nak pergi.
Dia isu dia, kalau let's say the marriage ni between Malaysian citizenship, biasanya mahkamah akan bagikan hak penjagaan kepada isteri lah. Biasanya kan, pada ibu lah biasanya dia akan
Okay.
tapi ni
Kalau luar negara, biasa dia akan pergi ke CM Malaysia. Dia tak pergi luar negara.
sebab ni kalau that's why dia nak kena tengok balik kes dia ni, dia berkahwin di mana, sebab dia nak tahu kan. So ni dia banyak ni sebabnya, sebab kalau kita kat Malaysia, so for sure kita nak make sure yang anak itu jatuh ke tangan Islam, yang Islam. Itu. So itu dia punya isu dan kes kat sini. Okay? Sebab dia ada pengaruh religion. Religion lah banyak kat sini. Okay, so another case is Ahmad Fikri bin Ali Hanafiah and Fauziah binti Kamis. Ni you pun boleh tengok lah tapi maksud saya jelas, nampak saya nak bagi contoh tu. Okay. Next one. Ni famous politician ni tau. Okay, so this one, another one is what has been highlighted by Fino just now, the discrimination at workplace. For example, equality of women at work. Okay, so the case ni, this is a very famous case in industry, Beatrice Fernandez versus Sistem Penerbangan Malaysia, MAS. Ni memang famous lah. Okay, so in Beatrice case, the plaintiff was employed as an air stewardess and was dismissed when she became pregnant. Sebab biasa kalau kita nak jadi stewardess, nak jadi pramugari ni, kita kena maintainkan bentuk badan dan berat. Okay. So the collective agreement which govern the relations between the employer and the plaintiff contain a clear clause which provided for two scenarios in the event that an air stewardess becomes pregnant. Memang ada dalam dia punya CA, collective agreement dia tu, ada dua clause ni. Okay, so the ambit of Article 8 of the Malaysian Federal Constitution, equally before the law, equal protection of the law only covers contravention of individual rights by a public authority, for example, the state of any of its agencies. The words are all persons are equal before the law and entitled to equal protection of the law meant that the equality provision did not apply because the collective agreement which was sebut ni, to the discriminatory was not law. Sebenarnya dalam dia punya collective agreement dia tu memang dah dinyatakan yang stewardess ni dia kena maintainkan bentuk badan tertentu dengan berat badan dia tertentu, dan bila dia pregnant dia tidak dibenarkan bekerja. Maksudnya dia kena bercuti lah. Okay. Okay, so tetapi dalam clause tu sebenarnya dia dah against our Malaysian Federal Constitution. Okay. Equality maksudnya dia memang, tapi sebab saya rasa untuk kes pertama bila dibicarakan dia menang, tapi bila dibawa ke High Court dia kalah. Sebab dia dah ada dalam CA. Untuk kes Beatrice ni. Tapi discrimination lah untuk women. So nampak balik nampak balik. Okay, bila saya relatekan balik, bila saya kata previously ni banyak lelaki ni ada tempat kerja didominasi oleh lelaki. So maksudnya okay, the working environment of the organisation ni has been shaped by the needs and demand of a male. Okay, maksudnya sebab lelaki mana ada pregnant kan kalau jadi steward. So dia memang dah dibentuk dan di-shape mengikut keperluan pekerja tu, kategori tertentu. So bila start ada perubahan, transformation in which women entering the workplace, dan sekarang ni OKU entering the workplace, dia ada isu isu dia ni, ya Allah, term dia tu saya lupa. Inclusiveness. Sekarang sebelum ni women dah masuk satu habis satu, sekarang ni inclusivity. Women, people with different abilities pula bila dia nak masuk ke tempat kerja. So apa penyesuaian yang kita kena buat in terms of rules, policies working environment. So saya ada satu research yang kita orang tengah buat related to people people with different abilities. Okay, so bila dia bekerja, contohnya kita pekerja kita ni adalah yang peka. Okay, pekerja kita peka. So you just imagine if the emergency happen, contohnya berlakunya kebakaran, so siren tu menyala. Siren tu berbunyi tapi dia tak menyala. So what can you just imagine what happened to this employee? Dia
Aspek
peka.
keselamatan pula.
So the working environment, we need to make sure that it is suitable, fit with our employees. Kalau kita nak ambil orang tu dan kita tahu, kita kena sesuaikan balik. Okay. Okay, another case is Jagannathan, anak lelaki Mahadevan, okay, versus Lecton, contractors Malaysia Sdn Berhad, in which the plaintiff ni, Jagannathan ni, plaintiff work as a truck supervisor, has been dismissed by employer due to aided and or abets in the attempted robbery of 8 rails valued of about 1 million belonging to Keretapi Tanah Melayu Berhad, Syarikat MMC Gamuda Joint Venture, which property was entrusted to Emerald Lecton Contractors Malaysia Sdn Berhad for the purpose of laying new rail track. Maksudnya Jagannathan ni didapati dia cuba mencurilah 8 rail ni. Hargalah 1 juta. Okay, so dalam kes ni, okay, biasalah kalau ikut law ni dia akan according to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Article 11 state that everyone charged with a penal offence has the right to be presumed innocent until proved guilty according to law in a public trial at which he has had all the guarantees necessary for his defence. Okay, so memang dalam kes ni dia kalah lah. Okay, another case is Unilever Malaysia Holdings Sdn Berhad versus Soul Line and Ano. You all boleh tengok nanti kes dia. Panjang pula nak cerita. Okay. Next one. Any question on interpersonal conflict? Clear Nampak simple tapi banyak kompleks juga. Okay, so intragroup. So refers to conflict between 2 or more members of the same group or team. So it has significant influence on group dynamic across different level in organization. For example, it will influence the decision-making task, project group and production team. So intragroup ni mostly crucial for any organization that is work out based on teamwork. Okay, saya rasa yang pekerja uniform memang team, bomber. Okay, ada pula industri pun ada some macam contoh yang produce production line, dia memang based on team. Okay, so according to Jern, there are two main types. Okay, two main types of intragroup conflict. The first one is task conflict. Second one is relationship or emotional conflict. Okay, so the task conflict ni involve 2 parties who are unable to reach an agreement or move forward on the task at hand due to differing needs or perspective. Okay, maksudnya dia tak boleh buat kerja sebab ada perbezaan pendapat dan keperluan. So the task conflict ni can be divided into 3 types. The first one is behavioral, in which it occurs when someone interferes with your goals or objective. For example, you wish to keep your work desk neat and tidy, but your co-workers keeps leaving piles of paper all over it. Ni berlaku juga dekat satu kilang welding, in which seorang pegawai store ni dia memang jaga store tu, tapi dia ada team member yang bila rehat je dia akan datang merokok di situ. So ini adalah salah satulah contoh. Okay, so next one is cognitive, in which it is a disagreement between you and someone else due to divergence between your interest, needs and objective and the other person's interest, needs and objective. So for example, let's say you and a fellow researcher both need to use the company's supercomputer to process data on separate research project. Okay, so you each disagree about which research project has priority because it is in both of your interest to finish first. Okay, in the example. Next one, affective, which means emotional feeling. Okay, and in the course of conflict, it means negative feelings such as anger, resentment, and aggression. So getting into a fight with a co-worker over personal resentment is a perfect example. So next one is relationship. Okay, So effects of intra-group conflict on group performance or outcome is moderated by a number of factors, including the context under which it is examined and the type of outcome. Okay, so the task conflict has a less negative relationship and at times even positive with group performance. Okay, and then task conflict has been related positively to group performance and outcomes when such conflict occurs in management group. Ini senanglah. Okay, so the theory that I can explain the intra-group conflict is relationship theory. So we can use the relationship theories to explain the conflict happen related to intra-group. So according to these theories, okay, there are two types. Okay, the theory ni they highlight on how the relationship between the people involved in a conflict affects the way the conflict is enacted and resolved. So kalau ikut relationship theory ni, kita akan tengok macam mana hubungan antara individu ni akan mempengaruhi cara penyelesaian konflik. Okay, macam mana kita nak selesaikan. So there are two types of relationship theory. The first one SET, social exchange theory, and then the second one is system theory. Social exchange theory and system theory. Okay, so social exchange theory or SET, developed by Kelly and Thibault. Okay, in which it states that people evaluate their interpersonal relationships in terms of their value, which is created by the cost and rewards associated with the relationship. So SET ni, they has been adapted from the business setting. Kita adapt daripada setting business, setting perniagaan. Okay, that's why kita ada cost and reward, term cost and reward ni. Okay, so dia kata cost kat sini merupakan amount of effort put in the relationship. Okay, so dia kata kat sini untuk dalam social exchange ni dia ada dua kriteria penting, cost dengan reward. Cost ni adalah benda yang kita laburkan, benda yang kita bagi untuk dalam satu-satu hubungan. Okay, dan reward ni amount of result received from the relationship. So rewards adalah apa yang kita dapat, output yang kita dapat. Contohnya dalam dalam institusi perkahwinan, contohnya isteri spend masa dengan anak-anak. So dia harap hujung minggu dia ada masa dengan suami, for example. So pada dia effort dia untuk jaga anak-anak dalam seminggu ni, dia akan di-rewardkan dengan masa dengan suami contohnya. Okay. And then people assess the cost and rewards associated with their relationships through what is termed the comparison level and then the comparison level alternative. So bila kita nak tahu, sebab bila kita kata cost dengan reward ni, bila kita laburkan sesuatu, perhaps kita mesti ada expectation yang apa yang kita akan dapat balik. Okay, faham Kita laburkan, kita beri dan kita ada expectation untuk kita dapatkan balik. So bila kita nak tahu kecukupan cost dengan rewards ni, kita akan tengok comparison level dengan comparison level of alternative. Kita akan ada dua kriteria yang kita akan tengok. Okay, so the konflik hubungan ni akan berlaku as a result of reward received, reward yang kita dapat ni lesser than cost paid. Bila kita rasa effort yang kita bagi ni tidak mendapat balasan yang setimpal, so maka berlakulah konflik. Okay, so comparison level emphasize the standard satisfaction or attractive the relationship is. Okay, so it reflects what people feel they deserve. Okay, if the rewards of a relationship compared to its...
Doktor nak tanya lah.
Ya.
Doktor nak tanya, kalau yang macam relationship ni, maksud dia lebih kepada macam suami isteri je ke, ataupun macam kat tempat kerja tu kita punya macam squad mate kita, macam sama-sama kita training ke, ataupun sepupu kita kerja sama dengan kita ke, ataupun relationship ni dia macam meluas lah, macam
dia boleh apply to mana-mana, Syafian, as long as ada dua interaksi, dua individu yang berinteraksi, maka apply lah benda ni. Contohnya, okay, dalam satu organisasi you ada dua exec, maksudnya ada dua executive officer, executive lah, exec. So satu ni dia memang bekerja, kadang-kadang memang bekerja dalam pukul 9 baru balik. Yang satu ni pula dia bekerja pukul 6, sharp pukul 5 dia balik. Hak ni yang A ni memang sampai pukul 9 stay lagi. But end year based on performance evaluation, end year performance evaluation, the person that has been promoted is the person B. What you feel? What do you feel? What do you think that might face by the A ni? Nah, sebab dia rasa dia dah put effort. Tapi kalau dia rasa bila dia dah put effort, dia tak dapat the promotion, what you think? There will be intention to leave the organisation. Sama. Maksudnya effort yang kita put. Sama juga dalam marriage, sama juga di tempat kerja, sama juga dengan kawan. Contoh dengan kawan. Kawan kata, pukul 6 jom buka puasa. Contoh. Kita sampai pukul 5.30 tu dah sampai dah. Kawan tu sampai pukul 8.30. What do you think?
Apa perlu kita buat? Kita sound dia ke apa?
So, dia ada dua lah. Dia ada dua. Sungguh dulu. Ni baru dia punya basic dulu. Okay.
Biasa hadapi benda ni, situasi ni kan.
Okay. So next one, that one is comparison level. So they emphasize on the standard satisfaction. Ni comparison level ni kita apa yang kita rasa kita deserve, apa yang kita rasa kita patut dapat. Okay. Comparison level alternative ni the lowest level of outcomes a person will accept in a current relationship in light of available opportunities in other relationships. So the more the outcomes in a relationship exceed the comparison level alternative, the more committed a person will be to the relationship and the more dependent that person will be on the relationship for psychological reward. So comparison level ni apa yang kita rasa kita deserve. Comparison level alternative ni apa the lowest yang kita dapat. Okay. Yang ni yang betul-betul kita dapat. Yang ni apa yang kita rasa kita patut dapat. Okay. So people choose their behaviors due to self-interest and a desire to maximize rewards while minimizing cost. So bila saya kata model ni has been adapted by business, so biasalah kalau kita orang business, kita nak minimizekan cost dan kita nak perbanyakkan keuntungan. So maksudnya semakin tinggi comparison level ni, semakin tinggi comparison level alternatif ni daripada comparison level yang kita tetapkan ni, dia semakin bagus. Itu maksud dia. Okay, so there is a rule of fairness. People expect rewards to be proportionate to contributions they made for the relationship based on their perception of the rewards and cost involved. So at least kalau kita buat business, for sure kita at least kita dapat modal. Itu kita punya anggapan lah. Kan, at least sekurang-kurangnya paling teruk kita mesti dapat modal. Kita tak boleh rugi, tak boleh kurang daripada modal. Tapi kalau kita dapat lebih, kalau contoh kalau kita buat business, saya bagi contoh, kita buat business, kita laburkan RM50. Kita laburkan RM50. So kita punya CL, comparison level ni, kita punya anggapan yang kita rasa kita patut dapat probably 100.5. 2 kali ganda, contohnya 100.5. Tetapi comparison alternative ni, yang worst, so tiba-tiba kita dapat 100. So 100 tu still atas daripada comparison level alternatif kita. Dia still atas daripada comparison, dia still atas daripada yang minimum yang kita boleh, yang kita dapat, yang kita tak sepatutnya dapat. Alah, pening aku ni. Gini. So saya laburkan RM50. So saya jangka yang saya sepatut dapat RM150. Okay. Tetapi yang actual saya dapat adalah RM100. Okay. So bila saya dapat RM100 ni, this one, ni kita letak kita punya CL alternatif. So RM50 ni perhaps lah kita jangka yang paling teruk, yang paling betul-betul teruk RM50 je. Ni kita dapat balik modal. So ni kita punya alternatif, kita letak 50 ataupun you all nak letak RM55 sebagai kita punya alternatif, CL alternatif. Tapi bila kita dapat 100, so this one exactly yang kita dapat. So since dia lagi tinggi daripada CL alternatif ni, so it is satisfying lah. Walaupun kita tak dapat yang 1.5 ni. 1.5 ini adalah apa yang kita rasa kita patut dapat. Tapi tak semestinya kita dapat. Faham? Faham? You want me to elaborate again?
Faham.
Faham.
Okay. Orang bisnes senang. Okay, so next one. Faham untuk SAT teori tadi?
Okay, doktor.
Okay, so next one is structural theory. Okay, so structural theory ni, Okay, so structural theory ni it is
Maksud dia,
ada siapa yang bercakap ke siapa yang bercakap? Okay, so conflict is a structured situation. So bila dia kata kalau ikut structural theory ni, konflik tu sendiri merupakan situasi yang berstruktur. Okay, so bila kita kata berstruktur ni, bila kita deal dengan seseorang tu, for sure orang itu adalah dalam satu sistem atau struktur tertentu. Okay, so it results from the condition that characterize relationship and that make interaction possible between the people in the relationship. Okay, so according to structural theory ni, there are two model. Okay, the process model and structural model. So the process ni focus on the sequence of events within a conflict episode. Okay, the structural model focus on the condition which shape conflict behavior in a relationship. So either, okay, the way kita nak behave in the conflicting situation ni, it depends on trust, uncertainty and power. So bila kata dalam satu struktur sistem kalau dalam organisasi lah kita ada general category employees, kita ada officer, kita ada supervisor, kita ada exec and manager. So itulah maksudnya. Okay, so dia ada struktur. Okay, so bila kita berinteraksi dengan seseorang dalam ikut structural theory ni, dia akan bergantung kepada tiga elemen ni. Trust, kepercayaan, uncertainty and power. So trust ni merupakan kepercayaan, kita percaya orang lain tu jujur, benevolent. Okay, the more we trust other, the less uncertain we will feel about the other's motive in the conflict. Okay, so kalau kita makin kita percaya ke orang tu, so makin kita rasa secure. Okay, kita rasa makin kita yakin dia tak ada motif yang buruk terhadap kita. Okay. Next one is uncertainty. So uncertainty occurs as a result of insufficient information to understand another's motive, goals or behavior, or when we do not understand how another is responding to us. Okay, so uncertainty kita tak tahu dia punya karakter. And lastly, power. Okay, something a person has over another. Okay, so tiga benda ni untuk teori struktur. Okay. Next one is intergroup conflict in which it occurs in many societies. Tak kiralah dekat tempat kerja, dekat kejiranan, community. Okay. So intergroup conflict are related to situation in which a group fights with another group. Okay. And then conflict takes many forms. For example, Kerajaan Malaysia versus Kerajaan Negeri Kelantan. Kerajaan Negeri Selangor versus Sagong Tasik. This one ni related to case orang asli negeri Kelantan. Kerajaan negeri Kelantan ambil tanah orang asli. Okay, ini kes dia. Kerajaan negeri pun berkaitan dengan pengambilan hak tanah orang asli juga. Kerajaan negeri Selangor versus Sagong Tasik. Okay, ini contoh konflik berlaku antara kumpulan. Okay, so what causes intergroup conflict? So social psychologists have given 7 different explanations for intergroup conflict. So the first one is authoritarian personality. Okay, next one kin selection. Okay, and then realistic group conflict, group threat, symbolic threat, intergroup anxiety and social identity. Okay, so this one more on macro level lah. Okay, international conflict. Okay, for example war, hegemonic war. Hegemonic war ni adalah kalau ikut Thucydides teori ni, dia kata hegemonic war ni brings fundamental change in the international system. So contoh dia hegemonic war adalah World War II. So any war yang dia memperkenalkan satu sistem baru, nama dia hegemonic. Okay, example ni World War II, banyaklah benda yang berubah. Dan last time saya rasa dan sekarang ni probably lah the corporate war between China and US. Itu pun banyak juga perubahan dulu. Okay. Okay. Tak ada apa. So any questions so far? Tak ada Nak take a break ya? Tak ada
Tak ada doktor.
Tak ada. Okay. Kita take a break 5 minit boleh?
Boleh.
Boleh.
Kita sambung lagi.
Okay.
5 minit Dah lebih dah 5 minit dah ni. Meh. Dah lah tu minum air, meh. Sambung. Ada orang tak? Ada kan?
Ada.
Okay. So,
Ada doktor.
okay.
Ada.
Biarkan senyap lagi minum air kat dapur. Okay.
Ada doktor.
Okay, so kita continue dengan factors related to conflict. Okay, so saya tahu you all, kita semua ni dah tahu dah banyak pun faktor-faktor tentang konflik ni kita dah tahu dah semua. Okay. Kita refresh je, dan kita sama-sama tambah ilmu. Okay, so saya suka ni perkataan daripada Emily Dickinson ni. It is essential to the sanity of mankind that each should think that the other crazy. So, bila kita fikir orang lain gila, barulah kita tidak akan ambil hati dengan kata-kata atau dengan perbuatan orang tersebut. Kan, maksudnya the main thing that we need to remain is our internal peace. Maksudnya keamanan dalaman kita ni. Okay. So this is our LO. Okay. Nanti you all tanya, doktor kenapa asyik kena ada LO? Wajib ada, ikut MQA kena ada benda ni. Apa expectation, habis kelas je apa yang you all akan dapat. So at the end of the session, students are able to recognize that conflict has many causes, understand why it is necessary to look beyond obvious causes of conflict. Okay, and then be familiar with the 12 most common causes of interpersonal conflict. Okay, so dalam apa-apa konflik sekalipun, for us to understand and conceptualizing, organizing the sources of a conflict can greatly improve the chances that effective means for managing and resolving the conflict can be found and implemented. So dalam apa-apa situasi konflik sama ada kecil ataupun besar, ini sangat penting untuk kita faham dan kita susun balik. Okay, kita susun balik. Either it is a real conflict ataupun a hidden conflict. Okay, supaya kita boleh come out dengan strategi yang sepatutnya untuk kita manage ataupun resolve the conflict. Okay, so there are usually multiple sources of any given conflict. Untuk sesuatu, bila kita tengok dia sesuatu situasi berlaku depan kita ni, kadang-kadang puncanya bukan hanyalah satu. Okay, so puncanya banyak dan boleh jadi berkait. Okay, there are tangible and intangible conflict. Okay, so in legal dispute, tangible ni maksudnya mungkin tangible ni disebabkan dalam fikiran ataupun perasaan. So macam kalau kita reflect balik the definition of conflict, kita kata yang konflik ni dia boleh jadi sesuatu yang kita perceive. Tak nampak, kita tak nampak tapi kita rasa, perceive. Kita rasa benda tu against kita punya comfort. Okay, and then dia boleh jadi intangible benda yang obvious. Okay, dia boleh jadi violence, boleh jadi hempas pintu. Okay, and then in legal disputes, there are two major obvious sources of conflict. So kalau dalam legal, dia ada dua jenis yang ketara. Okay, so the legal disputes are perceived and framed as differences over resource ownership or control. Okay, so the nama konflik dia adalah resource conflict. So for example, if a divorcing couple is disputing over entitlement to pension right. Okay, maksudnya dia berebut untuk dapatkan hak pencen. Okay, so conflict involving the right to control a resource or money, property or intangible or valuable thing. So kalau dalam case divorcing couple ni, so dia merupakan konflik yang berlaku disebabkan untuk mendapatkan hak atau ownership of the pension. Okay, and then another one is data type conflict in which dispute over facts or law are also easy to spot in the legal domain. Okay, and then for example, the legal basis for determining
Okay, dah.
Okay, so next one is data type conflict, So data type conflict, okay, in which it is related to dispute over facts. Okay, so for example, the legal basis for determining the dispute entitlement will always boil down to either a determination of dispute facts. So what proportion of the time period during which this pension was earned took place during the disputant's marriage or law in divorce? How is the entitlement of each spouse to a pension determined? So dia ada portion-portion dia tertentu lah. Okay, so ni okay faham Okay, so next one, another sources of conflict. Okay, resource, data type, ni kita dah discuss tadi, resource and data type mostly happen in legal. Okay, and then preference and nuisance, ni mostly happen, bukan mostly, kebanyakan berlaku ni antara, contohnya antara kejiranan. Okay, differing attribution of position, communication problems, differences in conflict orientation, structural or interpersonal power, identity, values and belief, displaced and misattributed. Okay, so kita tengok one by one. Okay, so resource conflict ni conflicts over ownership or control of something of value such as tangible object or money, or of an intangible item of value such as the right to spend time with a loved one. Okay, ni contoh. Okay, most obvious sources of conflict, resources ni konflik yang senang kita nampak. Okay, diagnostician need to understand what resources disputants are passing over to help come up with an effective strategy for dealing with the conflict. It tells one only that each disputant wants all or part of the same thing. Okay, focusing only on the resource aspect of a conflict tends to mislead the observer into thinking that the conflict is intractable. A conflict resolver might use this knowledge to help the disputant fashion a compromise or to do log rolling or trading of some of this resource against entitlement to another resource of greater value to the disputant who is giving up his or her entitlement. So knowing the other sources of conflict can lead to greater understanding on more effective solutions. So resource conflict ni dia paling senang sebab dia merupakan konflik yang kita boleh nampak. Okay, but okay, kadang-kadang konflik tu dia bukannya berlaku semata-mata disebabkan resource tu je. Okay, so saya rasa kalau you all still remember one of the case that I've shared with everybody last time. Okay, conflict regarding divorce juga melibatkan penceraian, melibatkan tuntutan harta sepencarian. Okay, mula-mula dia menuntut hak penjagaan anak first. Okay, along the way dalam proses proceeding mahkamah dia minta pula harta pencarian, hak sepencarian. Okay, sebab kadang-kadang konflik ni dia satu mungkin memang the wife ni nak dapatkan ownership untuk satu anak, lagi satu adalah untuk harta sepencarian walaupun dia tak bekerja. Okay, tapi sebenarnya ada intention lain. Okay, sebab kadang-kadang konflik tu sebenarnya dia bukan sahaja nak dapatkan the ownership of the property, tetapi dia nak rasa puas. Okay, bila dia dapat separuh, for example separuh daripada harta hak sepencarian ni, dia rasa dia menang. Dia mau kepada intangible satisfaction. Okay. Okay, so many conflicts are about much more than claiming entitlement to resources as child custody disputes often demonstrate. Okay, so ni lah sebab dia rasa bila dia dapat tu, dia rasa dia menang. Okay, for example of case in Ikwe Cheng Eng and Linda Herawati Santoso. Okay, so the parties were married and lived in the UK for a number of years, during which the husband bought some properties there. So the UK properties were sold when the couple returned to Malaysia, and proceeds were then used to acquire other properties in Malaysia. So upon divorce, 17 years later, so the wife claimed inter alia, okay, among others, the value of half of all those properties. So the husband argued that she was not entitled to them as she did not contribute towards the purchases. Okay, so ini example of case. So next one, data type. So data type ni involve the disagreement over facts or law. Okay, so for example, fender-bender, if one disputant thinks he was going below the speed limit and that the other entered his lane, but the other disputant disagrees and thinks she was cut off illegally. So maksudnya contohnya kalau kita tengah memandu, kita berada dekat lane kita tapi tiba-tiba ada kereta lain masuk. So the dispute between bila dia masuk dan terlanggar, berlakunya pelanggaran. Kalau dia masuk tidak berlaku accident, it shouldn't be a problem. Tapi bila dia masuk lain kita berlakunya pelanggaran. So dia akan ada dispute over fact ni. Next one is preferred by lawyers in the practices. So data types ni dia preferred by lawyers because it is based on fact. So bila kata based on fact ni dia senang untuk kita present dekat mahkamah. So viability of any causes of action can be evaluated. Okay, sebab senang lah bila ada fact ni dia viable. Okay, so if a cause of action or defense is warranted, this knowledge is used to determine the contents of pleadings, motions for judgment based on legal arguments and evidentiary considerations. So next one can often shortchange a disputant. So since the attribute is obvious, there is a tendency to stop there and not go deeper to determine the possibilities of another source of conflict. Sebab kadang-kadang ni kelemahan dia flaws data type conflict ni. Sebab bila kita kata benda tu dah memang obvious macam tu, it will stop the disputant or the mediator or the third party to explore further regarding what the possibilities that what the other probably the huge possibility that cause the conflict. Okay, so then there will be the tendency of miss more holistic, creative, effective, mutually beneficial and permanent resolution. Okay, and another example, case Ismail Omar lawan pengarah Jabatan Kerja Raya Daerah Kuala Muda SIK. Okay, so the case is the plaintiff is a legitimate father and a representative of the incapacitated person, Muhammad Helmi. Okay, so on September 12, 2008, Muhammad Helmi, who was riding a motorcycle on Jalan Gua Nenas, was involved in a road accident at about 9:15 p.m. So the accident is said to have occurred when Muhammad Helmi fell on the road due to a collision with a pothole, and this caused him to suffer injuries and losses. Okay, sebab ada lubang tu, so dia terjatuh dalam lubang tu dan menyebabkan dia cedera. So the result of the investigation showed that the hole had existed on the road for a week before the accident. Okay, at the scene of the accident, it was found that no warning sign had been placed to warn of the hole. So during the defense, the defendants argued, among other things, that they were given protection under Section 7 Government Proceeding Act 1956, and 2, the accident was caused by the plaintiff own negligence. So dia kata kalau untuk defendant ni dia kata berlaku disebabkan kecuaian plaintiff. Okay, kecuaian Muhammad Hilmi ni lah. Okay, so the question raised in this action is whether the accident was due to the negligence of the first defendant as the authority responsible for the maintenance of the road. Mana satu. Okay, so but based on the court decision, the impact of the whole collision of the road has caused Muhammad Hilmi and his motorcycle to fall. It is clear that at the time of the accident, the road was still in the process of maintenance work, patchwork of potholes done by the first defendant in stage where even though no maintenance work was physically done at the scene of the accident. So maintenance here is the work of patching, maintaining potholes. So additionally, the first defendant himself was unsure whether any warning signs were placed on the pothole road. Okay, so therefore it was found that the accident was not due to the Muhammad Hilmi's negligence. So ini dia punya case lah. Okay. So the first ni dia punya case, nanti you all baca lah. Dia the whole case ni panjang pula nak baca ni Case ni menarik juga. Okay, then the next one is clear tadi resource resource data type conflict.
Clear.
Marah tu. Okay, so next one, preferences and nuisance. So one disputant is doing something that harms, bothers or irritates the other. Okay, so preference and nuisance ni maksudnya konflik yang melibatkan seorang satu pihak ni melakukan perbuatan yang boleh mengancam, mengganggu atau annoying the other party. Okay, so for example, neighborhood dispute. Okay, so amenable and to settlement that restructure the environment. For example, the problem is a barking dog. Okay, the answer may be sound reducing barrier paid for both neighbor. Okay, and then it is still obvious issue in which there is a tendency for more holistic, creative, effective, mutually beneficial and permanent resolution. Okay, ni for example, to residents of an apartment building, each of whose noisy activities disturb the other. So it came out that each resident's schedule and typical activities were dictated by his fear of the neighborhood. One of the disputants was a person of color and the other was a white gay man. So ni contoh konflik lah dia melibatkan noisy activity. Tapi jiran ni dia takut dekat jiran dia sebab apa? Sebab dia merupakan black man, lelaki berkulit gelap, berkulit hitam. Okay, and then the other was yang satu lagi ni pula gay. Okay, and both had been suffering from repeated intimidation, harassment and threats to personal safety on the street. Dua-dua pula ada masalah intrapersonal. Okay. Okay, so this is another case. So interference with the use, comfort or enjoyment of land. So the case between Woon Tan Kan, okay, and then seven organization versus 7 ORS ni organization Sufian ada? Ada. Versus Asian Rare Earth Sdn Bhd. The plaintiff resident of Bukit Merah Village sued the defendant. Okay, so principally for an injunction to restrain the company from operating. So the plaintiff alleged that the activities from the factory produce dangerous radioactive gases. Okay, so dia kata the factory tu, kilang tu hasilkan gas radioaktif harmful to the resident of Bukit Merah. So the court granted a time-limit injunction and held that private nuisance was established. It was also held that the plaintiff health was being affected harmfully to a substantial degree. Okay, so ni another case Datuk Dr. Harman Singh versus Renal Link, KL Sdn Bhd. Sama juga. Okay, next one, material or physical damage to land or property. So ini case between Goh Chat Ni and three others kot ni, and versus Toh Yan and Ano. So the defendant who held a mining license carried on mining work on his land. This one dia buat mining dekat tanah dia. Okay, so the plaintiff whose land was adjacent to the defendant's land alleged that through mining activities, the defendant had committed negligence and nuisance. Okay, so the mining activities constitute unnatural use of land as water had escaped and flood the plaintiff land, causing to collapse and sink. So subsequently causing flooding, erosion and settlement. Okay, the court found that a landowner had a common law obligation not to interfere with the support structure of his neighbour's land, which is provided under section 44(1)(b) of the National Land Code 1965. So defendant had breached this statutory duty, was also liable in nuisance for the unreasonable, unlawful and substantial interference with the use and enjoyment of his his neighbour's land. Okay. Okay, so next one, differing attributions of causation. So the disputants disagree about the cause of some outcome. Okay, for example, a baby is born umbilical cord wrapped around the neck with the resulting loss of brain oxygenation response for cerebral palsy and development delay. So ini case dia lah. Okay, and then the physician and hospital may attribute the outcome to an act of God. So physician kata ni sebab Allah dah jadikan macam tu, Tuhan dah jadikan macam tu. Okay, because based on the presentation of fetus at delivery. Bila dia tengok fetus masa proses kelahiran tu, dia kata memang macam gitu, memang macam gitu sejak lahir. Okay, whereas family may attribute the outcome to the doctor's failure to perform a caesarean section. So mungkin keluarga pula kata ini kesilapan daripada pihak doktor. Okay, so the case, another case, example of case, Inas Faikah Muhammad Hilmi, a child swing through her father and next friend Muhammad Hilmi Abdul Aziz versus Kerajaan Malaysia. Okay, ni satu case, and then it is the case related to tort, medical negligence. Infant suffer from a quadriplegic spastic cerebral palsy from childbirth and treatment at hospital. Okay, so claim for general, special and future damage. So ni case dia. Okay, so next one, ini the most common one. Okay, so the communication problem in which the meaning of language or behavior may be misunderstood. Okay, so the differences due to environmental forces, language problem, cultural differences or differences in communication style. Okay, case dia ada, tapi saya nak share satu benda ni. Okay, so this one when we talk about communication tadi, it will involve verbal and non-verbal. Okay, verbal and non-verbal channel. So saya rasa verbal ni everybody dah quite aware lah macam mana kita boleh tengok dari konflik tu berlaku disebabkan verbal. But non-verbal, ni saya tunjuk sikit example. Okay, so non-verbal behavior. For example, gesture. Okay, kalau gesture ni kalau kita tengok because certain non-verbal behavior ni it will provide us with different information. Okay, and then for example the first one gesture, bila kita naikkan sikit bahu, shoulder shrug. Okay, shoulder kita naikkan bahu, so it indicate that a person does not know or understand what you are talking about. It indicates indifference and unconcern. Dia tak tahu ataupun memang tak kisah. Okay. Next one, waving of hand. So waving of hand ni indicate goodbye or draw the attention of a person. Okay, kita angkatkan tangan. Lambaikan tangan. Waving hand. Okay, clear. Okay, so next one is shaking hand. Okay, display. In general, shaking hand ni dia menggambarkan friendship, persahabatan. Okay, next one, palms up. Palms up. So bila kita bercakap, tangan kita tu ke atas. Okay, tapak tangan kita ke atas. So bila tapak tangan ke atas ni dia menggambarkan openness and vulnerability. Openness maksudnya keterbukaan kita untuk menerima komen atau pandangan orang ataupun dalam keadaan kita rasa kita dalam keadaan bersalah, vulnerable. Okay. Next one, palm down. Kita bersalam tapi tapak tangan kita ni ke bawah. Okay, so ni interesting. Kalau you all perasan, okay, George W. Bush ke ataupun negara presiden daripada negara-negara yang mempunyai kuasa besar ni, bila dia bersalam, tangan dia tu mesti nak ke atas. Okay, sebab apa? Sebab it will show the dominance and authority. Sebab dia bukan saja-saja, bukan gaya dia bukan gaya, tapi dia melambangkan dia tu ada kuasa. Okay, and dominance. Okay, then palm down. Ni dah. Okay, next one, hands in pocket. Ni. Hands in pocket. Okay, bila tangan masukkan kanan tapi thumbs ni, ibu jari ni letak kat luar. Empat jari lain masuk dalam pocket tapi ibu jari kat luar. So it's a signal of dominance. Okay, cuba perhati. Kita tak sedar tapi okay. So next one, only thumbs in pocket. Ibu jari je dalam pocket. Yang jari lain kat luar. So this one indicate the weak impression. Okay. Next one. Only thumbs in pocket. Ibu jari je dalam pocket tapi the rest of the fingers ni dia moving downwards tu, ke tengah. Okay, kedudukan jari tu. So it indicates the mating signal which is flirty. Okay, ni simbol ni tak kira lelaki ke perempuan ke, kena it gives certain meaning. Okay. Next one, factual expression. So saya rasa yang ni kita quite familiar lah Pursed lips. Kita puncukkan mulut. So tightening the lips might be an indicator of distaste, disapproval or distrust. Kita muncungkan mulut. Maksudnya biasanya kita dah macam tak kisahlah, nantaklah. Okay, next one is lip biting. So indication of worry, anxious or stress. Okay, next one, lip compression. Okay, kita compresskan, kita masukkan lip kita ke dalam. So expression of disapproval directed towards oneself, one own self. Okay, lip compression ni maksudnya kita rasa tak puas hati dengan diri sendiri. Okay. Asymmetric smile. Okay, bila kita senyum, satu bucu daripada bibir kita ni naik ke atas. So it indicate the signal of arrogance. Okay. Next one, symmetric smile. Kalau bila kita senyum, senyuman kita tu simetrik, kiri dan kanan ni sama. Okay, so it indicate a more genuine sign of happiness, especially with wrinkles in your eyes. Tambah-tambah bila ada kedutan dekat mata. Okay, maksudnya kita tahu orang tu betul-betul senyum. Okay, so next one, upward eyebrows. Okay, it's a signal of anger or possibly concentration. Okay, and then if your upper lip goes up like this, okay, macam yang dalam gambar ni, and your nose wrinkles, you feel disgust. Okay, posture ni pun menarik juga. Okay, kalau kita tengok posture ni, posture kita ni akan memberikan maklumat tentang keakraban kita dengan orang-orang tertentu. Okay, so posture, the first one dia ada 4 zone. Okay, the first zone is intimate zone. So between 15 and 45 centimeters or 6 to 18 inch. So of all the zone distance, this is by far the most important as it is the zone that a person guards as if it were his own property. Only those who are emotionally close to that person are permitted to enter it. Okay, this includes lovers, parents, spouse, children, close friends, and relatives. So there is a subzone that extends up to 15 centimeters, which is another 6 inch from the body that can be entered only during physical contact. So this is the close intimate zone. So kita ada the first one ni, intimate zone ni adalah untuk orang-orang yang betul-betul rapat dengan kita. Okay, macam anak, isteri, mak ayah. Okay. And then personal zone. So between 46 centimeters and 1.22 meters or 18 to 48 inch. Okay, so this is the distance that we stand from others at cocktail parties, office parties, social functions and friendly gathering. So ni biasanya untuk majlis-majlis social. And then next one is social zone. Okay, between 1.22 meters to 3.6 meters. So we stand at this distance from strangers, the plumber or carpenter, doing repairs around our home, the postman, the local shopkeeper, the new employee at work, and people whom we do not know very well. Okay. So last one, public zone. So over more than 3.6 meters or 12 feet. So whenever we address a large group of people, this is the comfortable distance at which, okay, we choose to stand. Okay, so ni ada lagi a few. Okay. So arms and legs cross. Kita punya tangan dengan kaki kita silang. So it indicate the expression of defensive position. Okay. Kalau ankle lock gesture ni, kalau untuk perempuan probably dia nak pergi bathroom lah, nak kencing. Okay, so next one, crossing or folding the arms or leg. So kalau kita perasan, kalau lelaki dia duduk atas kursi, tangan dia tu dia gumpalkan, okay, dan kaki dia cross. Okay. So ankle lock is often combined with clenched fists, resting on the knees or with the hands tightly gripping the arms of the chair. So for the male version lah, it suggests a negative or defensive attitude. Okay, kalau untuk perempuan pula, crossing or folding the arms or leg. Okay, so the knees are held together, the feet may be to one side, and the hands rest side by side or one on top of the other resting on the upper leg. So this one also indicate a defensive attitude for female. Okay. Ini clothing cues ni, okay, ni saja je lah tanya. Kalau you all tengok gambar-gambar zaman dulu-dulu. Okay, zaman dulu-dulu. Kalau based on Malay culture lah, based on Malay culture. Okay, kalau seseorang itu memakai baju songket, okay, baju songket siap dengan tengkolok ataupun perempuan selendang songket. So itu dia menggambarkan kuasa. Tapi kalau ni untuk British lah kalau untuk British, a boy under 6 years of age wears a skeleton suit and carries a wig. So wig ni, kalau kita tengok budak baru umur 6 tahun, so apa kaitan dengan apa nama dia wig ni? Lupa kan?
Rotan.
Bukan rotan. Apa? Belati bukan. Belati Bukan. Inilah whip ni lah. Okay. So
Tongkat.
tongkat bukan tongkat. Cuba tengok betul-betul. Aduh yang buat libas kuda tu, ataupun yang buat libas, kalau dulu buat libas hamba abdi tu. Hamba tu.
Ikut pari.
Pari pula. Whip lah whip. Okay. Saya lupa apa perkataan dia. Okay. So kenapa budak baru umur 6 tahun tu, apa kaitan dia dengan whip ni? Right? Tapi kalau dalam golongan bangsawan, so whip, bila seseorang tu memegang whip ni, dia menunjukkan expression of power or dictatorship. Okay, or monarchy. Okay, so next one. Okay, so kalau memakai jubah macam ni, so it shows the image of authority. Okay, ni pula gender image. Okay, kalau let's say kita tengok tupai ni, biasa kalau dalam lukisan tu kita tak tahu pun male or female. But we can get to know either it is male or female based on their dressing. Kan, dressing tu memberi maksud. Kalau perempuan, sebab that's why kita kata dulu perempuan ni more kepada kerja-kerja di rumah. So that's why cara pemakaian dia pun dia akan bagikan apron. Okay, kalau lelaki pula dia prone kepada as a breadwinner. So kita nampak lah. Okay. Next one, the femininity. So jenis baju tu sendiri menggambarkan juga femininity. Okay, ni masculinity. So baju yang tanpa lengan menggambarkan maskulin. Okay. Dah, tu je. Ni contoh information lah sometimes we do not aware about these cues. Okay. This one. Dah lah, settle lah ni. Okay, tapi ni menarik juga. Okay, this one mistake in the law of contract, as Lord Denning had highlighted in the case of Thorough versus Manchester City Council. In contract, you do not look into the actual intent in man's mind. You look at what he said and did. So betapa pentingnya message sama ada verbal ataupun non-verbal ni. Okay, so next one is the differences in conflict orientation. So differences in the way people preferentially or automatically respond to conflict. So it can cause disturbance in relationship when one disputant prefers the rough and tumble of a competition, whereas the other disputant prefers a cooperative, mutually collaborative approach. So next one, kita akan belajar this one lah. Okay, the conflict orientation, conflict resolution style nanti. Okay, this one tak apa. Next one, structural and interpersonal power conflict. So it involves inequalities of power, choice and freedom. So biasanya semakin banyak kita ada kuasa, semakin banyak kuasa yang kita ada, semakin banyak pilihan yang kita ada dan semakin banyak kebebasan yang kita ada. Okay, so kalau kita tengok kes yang biasa dekat organisasi adalah kalau kita tengok top management, top manager. Kan, sebab dia banyak kuasa dekat organisasi, so banyak flexibility yang diberikan pada dia orang. Contohnya flexibility untuk work from home, itu pun flexibility, part of it. Okay, flexibility untuk flexi work hours, boleh datang pukul 9, kadang-kadang pukul 10. Okay. And then a more powerful disputants are in a relationship harmful to the less powerful disputants. So semakin berkuasa seseorang itu, semakin banyaklah kesan negatif yang dia akan bawakan kepada the less powerful disputant. So disputes break out when the less powerful disputant becomes self-aware about the discrepancy and move to find a remedy for the situation. So konflik ni, kalau disputes breakout ni dia boleh jadi apabila rakyat bawahan, pihak di bawahan cuba untuk melawan the status quo. Okay. So ni contohnya yang sekarang ni berlaku sama ada di Myanmar ataupun Thailand. Sebab di Thailand monarki dia masih kuat. Tapi rakyat dia semakin educated. So bila rakyat dia semakin educated and then they aware about the gap ni, they try to challenge the status quo. Sebab itu akan berlaku. Macam kalau kat Malaysia hari tu bila berlakunya, bila kita start buat demonstrasi, itu salah satu. Bila rakyat pihak bawahan ni dia perasan, dia aware of that power gap. Okay, perbezaan kuasa ni. So another example is issues related to equal pay, civil rights, employment dispute. Ini is an example. And then next one, identity conflict. So it is a features one attributes to oneself, may include a judgment about self, self-worth, self-esteem, and as well as important role that the individual plays, such as student, mother, husband, sales manager, and so on. Okay, and then conflict in which a disputant's personal identity is threatened by the other dispute, in which we can relate to the Maslow hierarchy of need theory. So biasanya setiap individu, kalau Maslow hierarchy needs of theory, dia kata setiap individu dia perlukan 5 jenis ni, 5 type of need. So the first one is physiological need. Physiological needs ni yang the most basic one lah kita punya demand yang paling basic. Okay, include food, water, warmth, and rest. Okay. Ini sebenarnya berkait juga kalau let's say you are a manager dan you all nak plan untuk benefit and compensation to your employee. Sebab pada dunia pekerjaan berubah. Bila berubah, the needs of employee pun akan berubah. Okay, so contohnya sekarang, okay, dalam keadaan pandemik. So what most of employees that has been that has been requested to work from home, apa yang dia orang perlukan adalah perhaps benefit regarding the internet ataupun device, komputer ke untuk bekerja daripada rumah. Okay, itu probably we can insert this element in the benefit and compensation package untuk employee. Okay, and then next one is safety needs. Okay, for security and safety, belongingness and love needs, intimate relationships, friends, esteem needs, prestige and feeling of accomplishment. Ni pun penting kalau dalam organisation ni. Maksudnya the needs are to be recognized. Okay, dalam organisasi tu dia perlukan needs untuk di-recognize. Saya dekat kilang yang saya buat consultation ni kan, dia ada satu kelebihan dia lah. Every month tu dia akan wish birthday untuk setiap employee. Dia akan paparkan gambar dan wish birthday. So it is somehow part of element that can attract the employee loyalty to the organisation ataupun citizenship. Okay. Next one is self-actualization, which is achieving one's full potential including creative activities. Yang ni dan last. Tapi ni yang paling basic. Yang ni wajib ada. Dua ni. Okay. Okay, so next one. Lajulah. Okay, so next one, values conflict. Okay, so conflict over deeply held personal or community or social belief and values. So example, in a divorce, one spouse strong traditional belief about the inappropriateness of extramarital sex may set the stage for a custody conflict, particularly when the other spouse begins dating. Okay, and then some other conflict can be resolved by an agreement to disagree. Okay, for example, in the custody example, the parents could settle the case by agreeing that regardless of the personal belief of each, neither parent will bring home a date for the night while the children are in the home. Ini contoh resolution dia lah. Okay, so next one, saya lajulah ni, senang je ni. Displaced and misplaced ni, boleh lajulah sebab tadi dah discuss laju Okay, so this is the summary the summary of all the types of the sources of conflict. Ada 7 kalau silap, 7 ke 9. Okay, settle satu. Okay, next one. Okay, so this one is the conflict management. Okay, conflict management dan tajuk dia pun memang conflict management. Okay, so the LO at the end of the session, students are able to cooperate, determine what is cooperation and competition, conflict management style, the roles of third party, and negotiation. Okay, so what I have indicated earlier, so these are the strategies for or the conflict resolution approach. There are 5 conflict resolution approach. We have avoiding, accommodating, compromising, collaborating, and competing. So in which we can divide this one according to the level of assertiveness and cooperativeness. Assertiveness ni means that the tendency of a one party to fulfill their own needs. Assertiveness ni maksudnya tendensi untuk sesebelah pihak ni untuk fulfill their own needs dulu. Okay, cooperation ni the tendency of parties to cooperate or to work together with the another party. Okay, so kita ada 5 style: avoiding, compromising, accommodating, collaborating, and competing. So kalau kita tengok the first one, avoiding ni, it is absolutely uncooperative and unassertive. Maksudnya avoiding ni dia tidak memberi kerjasama dekat pihak lagi satu, dan pada masa yang sama dia pun tak mencapai keperluan dia. Okay, compromising ni dia located at the middle, okay, between cooperative and assertive. Okay, and then accommodating ni, it is more cooperative but it avoid the individual need. Collaborating ni je yang dia cuba fulfill both cooperative and assertive. Okay, kalau competing ni dia more prone towards the assertiveness but less cooperative. Okay, so kalau kita tengok dari segi dynamic dia, okay, dynamic dia, kalau compete ni dia akan lead to win to lose conflict. Satu pihak akan menang. Okay, kalau avoid pula dua-dua pihak tak menang. Okay, and then accommodate ni dia juga akan menjurus kepada loss win. Okay, satu pihak kalah, satu pihak menang. Okay, and then kalau compromise ni, dia menang sikit-sikit. Small win-win. But you have to sacrifice lah. Ada benda yang you dapat dan ada certain you have to sacrifice. Kalau collaborate ni, dia more kepada win-win. Okay. Okay, so the first one is avoiding response. Okay, avoidance conflict strategy. It is uncooperative and unassertive. So it neglects the interest of both parties by sidestepping the conflict or postponing a solution. So this is often the response of managers who are emotionally ill, prepared, or poorly trained to cope with the stress associated with confrontation. Okay, and then shows that relationship is not strong enough to absorb the fallout of an intense conflict. Okay, so repeated use of this approach causes considerable frustration for others because issues never seem to get resolved. Okay, really tough problems are avoided because of their high potential for conflict. Then employees engaging in conflict are reprimanded for undermining the harmony of the work group. So avoiding ni senang, maksudnya kita avoid je daripada konflik tu. Okay, kita tak ada initiative to move forward to resolve the conflict. Next one is accommodating response. Okay, accommodating tadi dia adalah cooperative but unassertive. Okay, we try to satisfy the other parties concerned while neglecting one's own. Maksudnya kita cuba fulfill the needs of another party tapi kita ignore kita punya. So case yang banyak berlaku adalah bila kita cuba bila kita cuba accommodate the need of our boss. For example, macam contoh tadi, sepatutnya pukul 6 kita dah janji dengan isteri kita. Tapi bos kita suruh juga stay sampai pukul 9. Contoh. Okay, so kita accommodate. Okay, so managers neglect of their firm's interests and responsibilities to accommodate the wish of others generally result in both parties losing. Okay, so the difficulty with the habitual use of the accommodating approach is that it emphasizes preserving a friendly relationship at the expense of critically appraising issues, protecting personal rights, and focusing on productivity. So this may result in others taking advantage of the accommodators, which lowers their self-esteem as they observe themselves being used by others to accomplish their objective while they fail to make any progress towards their own. Okay, so accommodating ni, ingat dia keyword dia, kita cuba satisfy keperluan orang lain tapi kita abaikan keperluan sendiri. Okay, so next one, competing response. Competing response ni it is more assertive and uncooperative. Maksudnya dia lebih kepada kita nak mencapai matlamat diri sendiri tapi kita tidak memberi kerjasama kepada pihak lagi satu. So attempt to satisfy your own needs at the expense of the needs of the other individual. So this can be done by using formal authority, physical threats, manipulation ploys, or by ignoring the claims of the other party. Okay, so ni for example lah I'm the boss, so we will do it my way. Ini biasanya perkataan yang kita akan guna kalau kita ni prone towards competing. Okay. Okay, so this one, competitive conflict escalation cycle, tak apalah, tak apa. Next one is compromising response. So it is located at the middle of the graph, okay, which is mean making sure that no one totally wins or lost. Okay, dua-dua. Mungkin dapat sikit, sacrifice sikit, dua-dua pihak. So by compromising, conflicting parties are settling for a workable solution rather than finding a totally mutually satisfying solution. So the step in the process of compromising conflict communication are as follows. So the first one, determine the needs of the conflicting parties. Maksudnya kita tahu keperluan kedua-dua pihak. If everyone has a legitimate claim, examine the outcome to determine whether everyone can receive an equal or fair share of the claim. Okay, if dividing the claim works, give everyone involved his or her share of the claim. Senang sajalah. Okay, so we are reminded of stereotype depictions of the siblings arguing over inherited property. Okay, compromising would involve selling the property with the proceeds evenly distributed to each of the siblings. So ini contoh kes dia adalah melibatkan kes pewarisan harta pusaka. Contohnya inherited property, harta pusaka, rebutan harta pusaka. So bila kita apply dengan compromising ni, maksudnya kalau let's say kita dapat satu ekar tanah, satu tanah je, maksudnya parents tinggalkan satu ekar tanah. So the most compromising way adalah kita jual tanah tu dan dividekan duit tu secara sama rata kepada semua adik-beradik. Nah, tapi ni selalu berlaku lah ni, rebutan harta pusaka ni. Okay, so next one, collaborating response. So it involve the integrative behavior and developing mutually satisfying agreement to solve the problem once and for all. So kalau kita perasan dalam graf tadi, collaborating ni dia paling kooperatif dan dia paling assertive. Okay, dia cuba untuk fulfill keperluan diri dan keperluan another party, dan pada masa yang sama kita akan cuba collaborate to make things work. Okay, so collaboration has two essential ingredients. The first one, it consists of integrative behavior such as cooperation, collective action and mutual assistance. Maksudnya kedua-dua pihak ni cuba untuk bekerjasama untuk mendapatkan penyelesaian yang terbaik. Okay, so when people collaborate, they work together toward the same ends in compatible role. So we call this teamwork. To an observer, the collaborators appeal to work side by side and hand in hand. So this approach is in direct contrast to opposing of competing individuals who counteract, antagonize and work against one another. So secondly, okay, collaboration means that the partners have in mind the same goal, which is to strive for mutually satisfying solution to the conflict. Okay, so it is a mutually satisfying solution and present the win-win outcome. Okay, promote the win-win outcome. And then collaboration not only emphasize one's own self-interest but also respect the other party's interest, needs and goal. Okay, so while collaboration may involve confronting differences, it requires a focusing on the problem and includes sharing information about everyone's needs, goals and interests. So this is the comparison between all the 5 approaches. Okay, competing, avoidance, compromising, accommodating and collaborating. Okay, itu sama. Okay, so so bila basically setiap individu dia ada satu style, conflict resolution style yang yang dominant. Setiap individu, okay, dia ada satu conflict handling style yang dia akan pakai pada kebanyakan masa. Macam saya sendiri, saya suka competing. Kebanyakan masa saya competing. Okay, so that's why saya kena ada adjustment sikit lah. Because not all situation suitable to use competition. Okay, so dan pemilihan style ni dia akan berlaku sangat dalam masa yang sangat sekejap. Okay, bila ada satu konflik tu, bila kita dah ada certain assumption terhadap seseorang, okay, dan dia akan reflectkan daripada behavior yang kita pilih. So behavior tu, inilah dia pengklasifikasian dia. Okay, sama ada dia competing, kita nak avoid, compromising dengan dia, accommodate ataupun collaborate. Okay. So biasanya bila berlaku konflik antara dua pihak, kita akan gunakan teknik negotiation ataupun bargaining. Okay. Namun sekiranya konflik tidak dapat diselesaikan antara dua pihak, tak boleh diselesaikan secara negotiation, so we need to proceed with the third party. Okay, so the third party ni fungsi dia adalah bila kita akan prefer to use the third party sekiranya konflik tu cannot be resolved by those in the dispute. Barulah kita akan gunakan orang ketiga. Okay, so pihak ketiga pula, kenapa dia bersetuju untuk intervene? Kenapa dia bersetuju untuk menjadi pihak ketiga? Okay, because the first one tendency to gain something. Okay, material or social in the form of increased status and reputation, a superior who persuade two squabbling subordinate to cooperate benefit from their ability to refocus again on their work, thereby improving her department's productivity or fixed payoff. Okay, another example is dalam case broker tanah. Okay, kenapa broker tanah ni nak jadi broker tanah? Antara penjual dengan pembeli tanah. Sebab apa? Sebab dia akan dapat commission daripada urus niaga tersebut. Okay. Okay, so intervention process, there are 3 steps. Ada intervener. So intervener dia akan ada approach dia. So bila kata approach ni dia ada 5 style tadilah. Okay. And then disputant dia akan tunjukkan behavior dia and then outcome. Then result dia sama ada conflict resolved or unresolved, and then interveners gain or lose. Okay. Okay, so this one boleh laju lah. Okay, so ni another typologies lah, another term that reflecting the third party. So formal and informal third parties, internal and external third parties, contractual and emergent third parties, horizontal and vertical third parties. Okay, as long as ada pihak ketiga, ni another term yang kita gunakan lah. Okay, boleh laju lah. Third parties. Okay, ni the role of third party in conflict resolution. Okay, so bila kita jadi third party dalam sesuatu konflik, so inilah fungsi dia. So the first one, catalyst, okay, to bring two parties to consider negotiation to resolve their conflict. Okay, facilitator, to provide a side and administrative arrangement for a discussion by two parties. Okay, educator, in which to explain to a party, for example, the domestic politics of another party as it affects the negotiating process. Sounding board, to provide a party which reaction as to the acceptability of its proposal. Okay, summarizer, to provide an objective record of discussions between two parties. Translator or interpreter, to explain what one party actually means in a proposal that can otherwise appear negative or unclear. Bridge builder, to provide a basis for two parties to achieve contact when neither is able or prepared to go the necessary distance. Okay, so ni another role lah. Ini boleh tengok. Okay, so the necessary characteristic of third party must be a skilled or scholar practitioner whose background, attitude, behavior and gender impartiality. Dia kena ada principle of impartiality. Kalau nak jadi mediator ni dia ada, third party. Belum mediator lagi. Dia ada impartiality and whose professional knowledge and expertise enable the facilitation of productive confrontation. Okay, and they should have moderate knowledge of the parties, low power over them and high control over the consultation situation. Okay, so kalau dalam untuk jadi third party ni, elemen yang paling penting kita ada skill, kita ada kemahiran satu. Yang penting ni lah impartiality. Okay, partiality ni neutrality lah, neutral. Okay, so biasanya dia kalau dalam conflict resolution, inilah dia strategi yang kita akan pakai. Sama ada direct negotiation, kita ada conciliation, mediation Arbitration and Litigation. So direct negotiation ni maksudnya kedua-dua pihak yang berkonflik dia akan negotiate, bargain with one another tanpa melibatkan orang ketiga. Okay, kalau conciliator ni kita dah ada orang ketiga. Tapi kalau kita tengok dari segi power of the individual ni from left to right dia semakin mengecil. Okay, tapi level of coercion daripada from left to right dia makin membesar. Sama juga dengan the importance of relationship, daripada kiri ke kanan dia semakin mengecil. Okay. Okay, so kita tengok one by one. So the first one is sebab negotiation senang Ada soalan tak pasal negotiation ni? Negotiation tak cover lah sebab dia melibatkan dua pihak je, dua individu tu. Bargaining. Okay, so conciliation ni it's referring to alternative out of court dispute resolution instrument. Okay, conciliation ni merupakan cara penyelesaian konflik di luar mahkamah. Okay, voluntary, flexible, confidential and interest-based process. Okay, the parties seek to reach an amicable dispute settlement with the existence of the conciliator who acts as a neutral third party. Okay, at some point during the conciliation, the conciliator will be asked by the parties to provide them with a non-binding settlement proposal. Okay, so maksudnya dalam conciliation ni both parties still discuss. Cuma the third party ni dia tolong sediakan non-binding non-binding settlement proposal ni. Okay, conciliation is a voluntary proceeding where the parties involved are free to agree and attempt to resolve their dispute by conciliation. Okay, so the process is flexible, allowing parties to define the time, structure and content of the conciliation proceeding. So dari segi content, dari segi perjumpaan, masa, struktur macam mana nak buat, still dipengaruhi oleh pihak-pihak yang berkonflik. Okay, so these proceedings are rarely public, so dia memang tertutup lah buat personally. Okay, they are interest based as the conciliator will when proposing a settlement not only take into account the parties legal positions but also their commercial, financial and or personal interest. So the ultimate decision to agree on the settlement remains with the party. So this is the example of conciliation. Nampak tak saya punya video? Nampak ke tak?
Tak.
Tak.
Okay, jangan marah, kejap. Jangan marah. Sabar.
Suara tu kan.
Sabar. Sekejap lagi ada kelas
Ada, hari ni full swing.
Good luck
Tak
lah.
awal tu.
Nasib baik
Ya.
saya bersyukur kelas saya awal. Sebab kalau tak semua dah mengantuk dah tu.
Betul, doktor.
Ngantuk. Okay, ni. Tengok video.
I'm Helen and I'm a conciliation officer. The ACCS, or the Accident Compensation Conciliation Service, is here as a first step to assist injured workers and their work cover agent or employer to resolve disputes involving workers' compensation claims. Conciliation is a free service. Our role is to bring the parties together, to encourage discussion, to help them see each other's point of view and assist them in reaching an agreement. We're independent, we don't take sides. Our aim is to avoid the dispute being referred to a court unnecessarily. So it's up to everyone to try and resolve the dispute before it gets to that level. We're not a court and I'm not a judge. Conciliation officers have limited powers to make decisions. We don't like to talk about winning or losing. It's about trying to find outcomes that everyone can accept. Unfortunately, sometimes that's not always possible. We can't always reach an agreement on the day, but we try our best. The system is designed to reduce the stress and the time and the costs for everyone. A matter usually can't be referred to court unless you've come here first and done your best to resolve the dispute. So if an agreement really can't be reached, we can provide you with a document that allows you to take it to court. I've actually got a conciliation conference coming up now.
Yeah, this is my first time at the conciliation service. I had a few issues that we couldn't resolve with the work cover agent and my employer, so here we are. When I sent off that request for conciliation form, I thought it would all happen pretty quickly, but it actually took a number of weeks to get the conference organised, which was good because when I got the letter with the appointment, It gave me enough time to get all my paperwork in order, especially the medical reports. Did you bring that first one, the one from your GP? Yeah, that's the one.
There you go. So I've got copies of all the documents for our reference.
That was the first thing I had to do. Fill in a consent form and get that sent off to all my doctors.
And the physio.
Physio's a doctor, so. All the medical reports got sent off to the conciliation people before the conference.
So I've got copies for them, copies for us just in case, and I've got all the paperwork they sent us.
Oh, and my notes, yeah. I made some notes, just questions that I wanted to ask, that sort of thing. So far, the hardest bit's been parking. They said the conference could go for an hour and a half, so we've got a 2-hour park. So I've got the park, got the paperwork, we're all set.
Got me too.
I'm sorry too, which is good. I get nervous, so they said I could have a support person there. They actually said that we could have 2 support people, Soph as a personal support and a workers assistant who's meeting us in there.
And that ACCS website really helped. It was good, wasn't it? And also the brochure that came with the DVD.
Yeah, it answered a few questions. It helped actually. So onwards and upwards.
We might have multiple meetings going on in these rooms at any time, so we try and keep it as informal as possible. We have tea and coffee if people want it. We try to ensure that people are comfortable. It can be stressful, but conciliation is about an open dialogue between all the parties involved. And in the majority of cases, the dispute is resolved here. We also stop for breaks if people need it. Sometimes it can get a bit emotional for people, or if someone's been injured, they may not be able to sit still for very long. Either way, we're here to make it as easy as we can. It's usually pretty straightforward as long as everyone comes prepared. We send out letters to the workers that sets out exactly what they need to have completed and returned to us before they come in, as well as anything they need to bring along on the day. They can also call us here at the Conciliation Service if they have any questions about the process before they come in. They won't always speak to a conciliation officer assigned to their case, but there's plenty of people here who can give them assistance. We can arrange interpreters for anyone, employers or workers. They just need to advise us of their needs well in advance of the conference date. We deal with a wide range of nationalities here, so if someone needs help communicating, we can make that happen. If someone has requested an interpreter, it's always a good idea to arrive about 15 minutes early so everyone has a chance to meet before the conference. And of course, we also expect that everyone arrives prepared to listen to the other side. So ideally, the parties should reach their own resolution.
Thanks. We have to meet Anna. She's my, what did she say?
Assistant.
Assistant, yeah. I mean, I've got Soph here as a personal support, which is good. But they reckon it's a good idea to have someone here who knows how the conciliation process works as well. So you can choose someone from your union, but if you're not in the union, then work cover assist if you want.
And apparently, if you want to have a few support people, you just have to make sure everyone's okay with that. I guess so they don't end up with a room full of people.
They even said we could have our own lawyer if we wanted, as long as everyone else agreed.
But hopefully we'll get it sorted without any lawyers at all.
Yeah, hopefully.
We often know the agents and the workers' assistant. It's because we all deal with each other on a regular basis. Of course, everyone stays professional and we remain impartial. That's our job.
Hey, how's it going? I'm Simon. I'm from your work cover agents. I'm Bruce. Did I talk to you about the claim? That would have been someone from my office. I just do a conciliation. So thanks for coming in early. Let's have a quick chat before the conference. Yeah. So how involved am I in this? Do I just let you do the talk? Well, I'm here to explain work cover's decision, but you should be prepared to put your case forward. Everyone's included in the discussions. Oh, okay.
Looks like Jim's met with his assistant. That's good. Well, it's almost time to gather the parties and do the introductions.
Look, we've got different opinions, sure, that's why we're here, but I don't see it as a context. I see it as a chance to raise the issues and hopefully get everything sorted. I have to go in.
Okay, let me just start by introducing all the parties involved and reminding everyone of the purpose of our meeting today and what my role is. My role is not to judge. I can't say who's right or wrong. It's to help the discussion so that some kind of resolution can be reached. Now, we're here to discuss the decision notice, and all parties will get a chance to put their thoughts and perspectives forward. So try not to interrupt, even if you hear something you don't agree with. Just hold on until it's your turn. We'll also probably break at some stage for some private discussions. If you do need a break, just ask for one. And I'll need mobile phones turned off, not silent, off, okay? At the end of the conciliation process today, there are a number of different outcomes that we can expect. My aim is that we reach an agreement through our discussions. If we can't, there are a number of other possible outcomes. The dispute can go to court. I can refer the matter to the medical panel, or we can adjourn to a later date. If the matter does go before the medical panel, that decision is final. Okay, let's start by introducing ourselves and we'll begin with the decision notice. My name is Helen and I'm the conciliation officer. Whilst it's important that everyone is ready to listen, it's also very important that both parties are prepared to communicate as well. They can't just sit back and let their agent or assistant talk for them. This is their opportunity to put forward their point of view. Some people like to write things down to help them remember. All right, so at this point, Jim, I'd like to ask you to respond to what you've heard so far.
I've got my version of what happened here. So, on the day of the incident.
And of course, we're here to discuss both sides, so the employer and their agent will also be expected to contribute.
Yeah, I respect Jim's point of view, and that there was some confusion about what steps were taken and when, but it doesn't change our initial stand.
And hopefully, once everyone has put forward their thoughts, we can work on finding a resolution.
That was okay. Not as scary as I thought it might have been. It was a good thing we got that paperwork sorted early, otherwise it might have been much harder.
And now we know what the next steps are, which is good. And we've got the expenses sorted out too.
Is that all the costs so far?
No, that's just for attending to those conciliations. So they gave us some reimbursement forms and we'll get them filled out. And they just said, give them a call if we've got any questions.
So, all in all, I guess not too bad. As long as you're prepared, then you're starting with your best foot forward, aren't you?
Jim was a little nervous to start with, but that's natural. I think he was fine once the meeting got started. He had all his papers and certificates in order, which really helps the process. Plus, he had both kinds of support. He had personal support from his wife and expert support from the worker's assistant. Getting that extra guidance from someone who's familiar with the system and the process really makes all the difference. Look, not everything can be resolved in one session and things don't always go the way that people hope. But as long as people have read the information that we've sent them, ask any questions that they need to and come prepared, then we're in a pretty good starting position. I've actually got another conference to prepare for, so there we go. Bye.
Okay, so that one example of conciliation. Okay, that one is example of conciliation session. Okay, in which both disputing party, they still have up to they will be provided by some space to give their own idea to resolve the conflict. Okay, so dia ada representative masing-masing. Kalau kita tengok tadi dalam situasi tadi, dua-dua ada representative masing-masing. Tapi conciliation ni, it is more on discussion lah, actually discussion between both party. Dan kita ada juga conciliator officer. Okay, so tapi dia punya decision based on conciliation process ni, decision dia adalah non-binding. So masih boleh berubah. Okay. Okay, so next one. Okay, so the benefit of conciliation, it ensures party autonomy. Okay, in which the parties can choose the timing, language, place, structure, and content of the conciliation proceedings. Okay, and then conciliation ensures the expertise of the decision maker. Okay, dia yang pilih. Okay, so the parties are free to select their conciliator. So a conciliator does not have to have a specific professional background. So the parties may base their selection on criteria such as experience, professional or personal expertise, availability, language and cultural skills. Okay, so a conciliator should be impartial and independent. So dari segi pemilihan conciliator ni terpulang kepada parti yang berkonflik. Okay, dia boleh pilih sesiapa sahaja. Okay, and then there is a no requirement for the conciliator to have a professional professional certificate. Okay, so conciliation is time and cost efficient. So due to the informal and flexible nature of conciliation proceedings, they can be conducted in a time and cost efficient manner. Okay, walaupun ada setengah conciliation ni dia memang boleh dibuat secara informal, tapi dalam case tadi, okay, so Helen tadi dia cuba sebaik mungkin untuk jadikan dia formal. So dia boleh jadi sama ada informal ataupun informal, tapi dia lebih kepada flexible. Okay. And then conciliation ensures confidentiality. So in which the parties usually agree on the confidentiality, the dispute can be settled discreetly and business secrets will remain confidential. So kalau kita tengok sesi tadi, dia hanya melibatkan 3 pihak. Satu pihak A, pihak B dan conciliator. So dan bilik yang dibuat pun adalah bilik tertutup. Okay.
Betul, nak tanya lah.
Yes.
Yang tadi yang pendamaian kan, conciliation tu.
Ya.
Macam pihak yang bermasalah yang akan melantik. Kalau contoh pihak yang lagi satu dia tak bersetuju dengan pihak yang dilantik tu macam mana?
Itu tak boleh lah. So kita ada yang lain pula.
Maksudnya kena dua-dua bersetuju lah.
Ya.
Boleh pendamaian
Betul.
tu lah.
Kalau conciliator tu maksudnya kedua-dua pihak bersetuju untuk kita lantik. That one.
Okay.
Okay, tapi itulah sebab saya faham ada certain situation di mana kalau kita propose, contohnya pihak ini propose untuk melantik satu pihak conciliator contohnya, tapi B tak setuju sebab dia rasa kemungkinan conciliator yang dipilih itu prone towards, bias toward the A. So itu dia takut. So that's why kalau boleh kita bila dalam pemilihan conciliator ni, dia biasanya daripada organisasi-organisasi tertentu. Ni belum masuk litigation belum masuk court So ini adalah alternatif. Okay, alternative dispute resolution ADR. Apa yang kita boleh buat selain daripada kita terus masuk ke court. Okay. Okay, so the next one is mediation. Okay, so the mediation is the process of mediation is a guided negotiation. So which parties attempt to negotiate a resolution of their dispute aided by a mediator. So the goal of mediation is for a neutral third party to help disputants come to a consensus on their own. So rather than imposing a solution, a professional mediator works with the conflicting side to explore the interest underlying their position. Okay, so the mediation can be effective at allowing parties to vent their feeling and fully explore their grievance. So working with parties together and sometimes separately, mediators can try to help them hammer out a resolution that is sustainable, voluntary and non-binding. So this one pun still non-binding untuk mediation. So settling disputes through mediation can save money, ease the court load and more often than not it leave parties in a better state of mind. So kalau berbanding compare dengan conciliation tadi, conciliation ni kalau nak jadi conciliator officer kita tak perlu ada formal certificate, formal professional certificate kita tak perlu. But mediation ni dia perlu dan kita ada law yang govern mediation ni untuk jadi mediator. Okay, kita ada law untuk jadi mediator ni dia dah start jadi more kepada formal. Okay, dia memang kalau nak jadi a mediator, you all kena ada kelayakan tertentu. Kalau let's say, kalau yang you all daripada legal institution, basically boleh tapi still kena attend the training. Kalau tak silap saya 48 jam training. Dan dia bila dah you officially become a mediator, okay, you akan digovern oleh Mediation Act ada. Okay. Okay, so ni kita tengok video mediation pula, berbeza sikit. Kalau lagi satu saya nak highlight masa untuk conciliation tadi, so dia punya discussion tadi, dia buat hanya satu discussion yang melibatkan kedua-dua pihak. Dua-dua pihak ada sekali. Tapi dalam mediation ni, dia ada dua sesi sama ada bersama dengan kedua-dua pihak ni together. Dia ada satu sesi yang memang dua-dua, lagi satu sesi dia akan jumpa setiap pihak separately. Okay,
dia macam lebih kurang sama.
Dia sama tapi tak sama approach dia. Macam kalau conciliator
sama tapi tak serupa.
Sama tapi tak serupa. Tapi dia ada beza. Macam tadi kalau kita tengok conciliator, okay, untuk yang menentukan decision dia tadi memang banyak lebih kepada conflicting parties. Okay, tapi dalam situasi dia pula tadi situasi dia tak tegang. Faham tak? Barulah kita boleh guna conciliation. Dan yang jadi conciliator officer pun dia tak semestinya ada professional certificate. Dia tak semestinya. Dia boleh jadi anybody. Dia ada beza macam mana kita conduct dan dia punya result pun non-binding. Sama dengan mediation tapi dia ada beza. Mediation ni untuk jadi mediator you all kena ada professional certificate.
Saya rasa dua beza ni macam conciliation ni dia lebih kepada macam nak mendamaikan beberapa pihak lah tanpa perlu macam data yang spesifik, tanpa perlukan knowledge dari segi perundangan, tak perlukan orang kata dia lebih kepada macam untuk melegakan perasaan yang tak puas hati kedua pihak lah. Asalnya lah, tapi yang kalau mediation ni dia perlukan orang kata perlukan figure, dia perlukan dari segi undang-undang yang terpakai, apa benda yang dari segi orang kata macam dari segi accounting ke dari segi figure-figure yang you boleh gunakan. That's why yang mediation ni diperlukan orang yang ada certificate. Lepas tu yang orang kata dia relate dengan orang kata macam kepakaran lah. Saya rasa lah.
Betul, sebab mediation ni dia tidak akan memberi penyelesaian tapi sekiranya perlu dia akan menceritakan so apa the consequences dia. Sebab macam tadi saya cakap untuk jadi third party mesti impartial ni neutral. Lagi satu, bila start mediation ni dia akan memberi maklumat mengenai penyelesaian. Kalau let's say kedua-dua pihak memilih penyelesaian tertentu, so apa consequences secara legal. So mediator ni dia akan expose tu lebih kepada information lah. Okay, dia ada sikit. So kita tengok lagi soalan nak tanya berkenaan mediation ni? Beza.
Mediation ni dilantik mahkamah?
Tak semestinya. Dia bukan dilantik, belum mahkamah lagi ni, kita belum masuk legal lagi. Okay, so mediation ni dia macam sebab ada macam kalau mahkamah, kalau di mahkamah, bila kita bicarakan kes di mahkamah, kes tu adalah terbuka, in which yang boleh datang tu public. Okay, orang-orang siapa-siapa pun boleh masuk masa prosedur mahkamah. Tapi conciliation mediation ni dia dibuat secara tertutup. Sebab nak menjaga air muka. Dan bila contohnya kalau let's say dia melibatkan pertelingkahan antara organisasi. So dia nak isu tu adalah secara tertutup. So that's why dia pakai mediator. Tapi dia tak semestinya daripada arahan mahkamah. Bukan, dia belum lagi sampai ke situ. Dia ni kedua-dua pihak lagi. Okay. Tapi mediator ni tak semestinya lawyer. Tak semestinya hakim. Dia boleh jadi sesiapa tapi yang ada memang ada certificate, professional certificate on mediation. Okay. Saya tengah nak buat tapi tak buat lagi. Tengah nak ambil lagi. Okay, so saya show dulu video ni.
Today you will see an example of a dispute resolution as an alternative to litigation. Zeus is a small energy company based in the EU member state of Argatha. It is in dispute with Ares, a large energy producer based outside the EU. The dispute concerns Zeus's need for the right to a reduction in the price and volume commitment for gas sold by Ares to Zeus under a long-term gas supply contract entered into between the parties 10 years ago. Zeus has attempted to vary its commitments under the contract by requesting a periodic revision to the price formula to take account of the major changes in energy markets. Ares has stated its intention to issue proceedings against Zeus, claiming 50 million euros relating to Zeus's failure to meet the take-or-pay contractual obligation under the supply contract. Zeus maintains that Ares' insistence on the original terms of the contract is anti-competitive and has stated that it will make a complaint to the competition authorities if Ares does not come to the negotiating table. Barbara is head of sales at Zeus and knows that her job will be on the line if the matter is not resolved without delay. Enrico is Zeus's external counsel and a senior associate at Amicable Law. It was he who suggested the mediation. Kevin is the commercial director at Ares. He is a hard-nosed negotiator and has only agreed to mediation to make clear his position. He knows very little about the process. He is represented by Nadia, the external lawyer for Aries and a partner from Sue Law. She is skeptical of the benefits, but has agreed to represent her client at the mediation. The parties have chosen Martha to act as their mediator. She has a wide range of experience of handling complex commercial disputes with a focus on regulated industries. We join them as Barbara, Enrico, Kevin, and Nadia start the joint meeting with Martha.
Welcome, good morning, and thank you all for instructing me to be your mediator today. As we've already talked about in the private sessions, the purpose of getting everybody together this morning in this joint meeting is to make sure that you're all clear about the structure of today and how it will pan out. In a moment, I'll invite each team to make an opening statement. I'll ask the lawyers to do that. And the purpose of that is to establish exactly what's important to you and what you'd like to achieve in today's session.
It's pretty straightforward. CS owes money and are now seeking to get out of the deal. A deal is a deal.
So you all know each other, you're familiar. So let's dispense with formalities. You've said to me privately that you're happy to use first names. I take it everybody is still okay with that. Yeah, and needless to say, you can call me Martha.
Can we get a move on?
So you know I'm a lawyer and an economist, but those roles really do not matter today. My role here is to act as a facilitator, to help you.
Martha then explains the process to the parties and reminds them of some of the key principles of mediation before asking each side to summarize their opening position.
I'd like to raise now, or are we clear about how things will pan out?
No, that's clear. Thank you for the explanation.
So Enrico, it's over to you.
Thank you very much, Martha, and thank you to Aries for being here today. We know it's a long and complicated story, but Barbara and I have worked in preparation for today to try and reduce it to some basic points that we would like to discuss with you. Of course, our starting point is the contract that we've had together for over a decade now, and Aries' refusal to negotiate that contract as provided for under clause 12. We believe at Zeus that the market has changed significantly since the signature of the contract. The price of gas in the market has changed, and the insistence on us purchasing gas at the price in the contract from 10 years ago is now causing us to lose money on all of our downstream customer deals. And the reality is that's causing huge emotional distress to the company and possibly ultimately insolvency.
Oh, please give it a rest.
I know, but look, you've even threatened to sue us now if we don't take the gas under the conditions of the contract. And it's a commitment that was made over 10 years ago. We would say we have a valid counterclaim, but insistence on those volumes being paid for at those prices is not only a breach of contract, but it's actually unlawful under competition law. That competition law claim is based on unfair and excessive wholesale gas pricing. And we say that your price currently bears no resemblance whatsoever to what's going on in the market now. There's been a huge upheaval, and you know that. We would also add that there is a sense of discrimination against Zeus by Aries. We know your biggest customer in Argata is Hermes. We know that you have a preferential deal with them. And we don't think that's right. And we
It's
say
pure
that's
speculation. You've got no evidence to say that about us and Hermes.
We do, and we think the agreement that you have with them is anti-competitive, and as such can be challenged. There's only a couple of other things. I know that you find these difficult to hear, but we say that you have a special responsibility. Ultimately, we're a smaller company than Aries, and as such, you have a responsibility to us to negotiate in good faith and to do so promptly. So, Martha, we today would ideally like to achieve simply our contractual entitlement. That's very simple. The we have a good faith adjustment of price and of volume commitments.
Thank you, Enrico. That's very clear. Nadia, I'll now invite you to speak.
I will keep my submissions brief. Aries refutes that it is a breach of contract. The renegotiation provisions in the contract provide only when there is a serious disturbance beyond the control of any party. And whilst there have been changes in the international gas markets, the situation in which Zeus finds itself is of its own doing. It is not the Aries to reduce the price or the volume to throw a lifeline to Zeus for its own financial mismanagement.
Look, I feel I must object to that. I mean, we're a well-run company. We would never agree to the volumes or the prices that if we'd not felt that there was scope for renegotiation of the contract. That's why we insisted on reopenness.
We're here today to state our case. If we cannot resolve the matter, we will not hesitate to issue proceedings against Zeus, claiming the sums due under the take-or-pay obligation. We have a watertight case on the competition issues. There is no evidence that Aries is dominant. Its market share is not approaching 40% in any relevant market. Even if it were dominant, which we deny, there is no final findings by a competition authority that it is an abuse of dominance to insist on contractual rights under a take-or-pay contract. And as to the allegation of anti-competitive agreements with Hermes, that is an arm's length relationship. There is no collusion.
Thank you, Nadia. Again, that's very helpful. I think now it's perhaps a convenient time for everyone to take a break, and I'll meet with Zeus shortly in private session.
Private discussions continued throughout the day over what appeared initially to be irreconcilable positions.
They agreed to a deal and now they're seeking to get away with it. You know, as far as I'm concerned, a deal is a deal.
So you can see that they're playing hardball, but I'm not surprised really. I mean, I know that a number of other supply companies are looking to reopen this, so I think I'm going to tough it out.
I think that's the best way forward. You tell me this competition argument's a balance, but you know, I feel like I'm getting screwed here. I'm getting done out here, you know.
We've had a possible interest from Hyperion on a takeover. And they're not going to want to do a deal with the threat of litigation hanging over us and, you know, a contract that's crippling to our business.
Unfortunately, you know, there's some documents that have been found that I really wouldn't want to come to light. So, listen, I'm going to go ahead with this mediation, but I'll tell you, I'm really skeptical.
After 8 hours, the parties are finally ready for a joint meeting.
It's late in the day, and thank you everybody for your patience in sticking through till now. You've all said you want to get together in a joint session, so here we are. I will hand over to Kevin really to get on with what is the business of the day.
I'll cut to it, okay? We have a final offer to make. We do not believe we are in breach of any of our contractual obligations, and your competition arguments have absolutely no leg at all. But we know this, it's still 10 years to go on the contract, and we're prepared to adjust our contractual obligations and their contractual formulas for the next 3 years. We are prepared to agree a 30% volume in reduction and to take pay obligation and a 25% reduction in the price for the next 3 years, starting the first. We have been backwards and forwards all day on this matter, and this is our final offer. This is more than a fair outcome. In return, you will not mention this to anyone and desist from making any complaints against us to third parties in respect of this matter.
So, all right, it's not what we believe we're entitled to, but we're being pragmatic. Now, I've been in touch with our CEO, he's up to speed, and we've anticipated this movement. So we'll accept the terms with the same commitment on confidentiality, and the 10 million all inclusive.
Yeah. That's fine. We'll swallow our legal fees on that.
Well, I've asked Enrico to draw up paperwork.
So let me summarise
Martha then summarises the position between the two parties to make sure that they are both clear on what is to be agreed.
So is there anything else, or has that concluded the issues? So I won't ask you to shake on this until everything's reduced to writing.
That's fine, Martha. I've been working on a draft settlements. I'm sure we can finalise everything this evening. I just need a few more minutes to check the language.
Right. So my role here is almost concluded. I'll leave to you to wrap up the paperwork, unless there's anything further I can assist with.
No, that's fine. And thank you for your hard work.
I'll second that.
Well, the credit must go to all of you, and the outcome was in your hands.
6 months later, Aries and Zeus found that they were shaking hands again. A result that could never have been achieved through litigation.
Okay, so that one is the example of mediation. Okay, so ada beza ada beza dengan conciliation dengan mediation. So kalau you all tengok dia punya proses pun lain. You all tengok the temperature pun lain. Okay, kalau conciliation ni dia lebih kepada pendamaian. Maksudnya pihak datang tu memang dalam keadaan memang nak menyelesaikan konflik. Tapi dalam mediation ni dia tak semestinya. Okay, tapi peranan peranan mediator kalau dalam mediation ni sangat penting. Dia bukanlah mempengaruhi keputusan kedua-dua pihak, cuma dia menyediakan maklumat tambahan yang diperlukan. Okay? Okay, so saya rasa kita stop kat situ dulu. Hari ni dah 11 lebih dah. You all ada next lecture. So nanti saya akan upload lah. InsyaAllah this week saya akan upload this lecture in YouTube. Okay, so any questions so far? Before we start.
Tak ada, Doktor.
Okay, so next week kalau okay, kita buat 2 jam je. 2 jam ataupun sejam setengah kelas.
Okay.
Supaya tak adalah mengantuk sangat. Nampak semua nganga, terlentang, terbaring, semua ada. Okay, so with that, I end our session. Thank you so much for today. So, semoga bersabarlah sepanjang hari ni. Okay, so Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam.
Thank you, Doktor.